Get out of my house, you cursed little thing! Vanessa grabbed the bucket of ice-cold water and hurled it straight at 6-year-old Zara's face. The child gasped, her small body convulsing from the shock, her father's funeral clothes now soaked through to her trembling skin. Your black daddy is dead. Your black mama is dead. You brought nothing but bad luck to this family. Zara collapsed onto the wet ground, clutching her teddy bear, the last gift from her mother. Her lips turned blue. Her eyes searched desperately for help. Neighbors peeked through their curtains, then quickly looked away. No one moved. No one dared. At that exact moment, a black Mercedes screeched to a halt at the gate. A tall man in a dark suit stepped out, and when he saw what was happening, his face twisted with a rage that had been buried for 25 years. Before we begin this journey together, I want to invite you to subscribe to our channel and follow this story until the very end. Please leave a comment telling me which city you are watching from, so I can see how far this story has traveled. Now, let us begin. The wooden door slammed shut behind them, and Zara Williams flinched so hard that she nearly dropped her teddy bear. Did you see those people at the cemetery? Vanessa's voice was already changing, shedding the sweetness she had worn, like a costume all morning. Crying over Marcus like he was some kind of saint. Please. The man was a fool who could not even stay alive long enough to sign the papers I needed. Zara stood frozen in the hallway, her small fingers digging into the worn fur of her teddy bear. She was 6 years old. Her eyes were swollen from crying. That bear in her arms was named Coco, the last gift her mother, Nicole, had given her before dying in a car accident 3 years ago. This morning, she had watched her father, Marcus Williams, being lowered into the ground at Westview Cemetery. Vanessa, Zara whispered, her voice trembling. I mean, Mom, can I go to my room now? I'm very tired. Vanessa spun around, and the mask fell completely. Mom, you dare call me Mom. She laughed a sound like breaking glass. Let me tell you something, little girl. I spent 2 years pretending to love your pathetic father, 2 years smiling at his boring stories, 2 years sleeping next to a dying man while waiting for him to finally give up. Do you have any idea how exhausting that was? Zara's bottom lip quivered. Daddy was not pathetic. He was good. He loved us. Loved us? Vanessa took a step forward, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Your father loved his money, his company, his precious reputation. I was just another trophy to him, and you were the reminder of the woman he actually loved. She bent down until her face was inches from Zara's. Your mother, the sainted Nicole. He whispered her name in his sleep, did you know that, even when I was lying right next to him? Zara shook her head frantically. Stop it. Please stop saying mean things about Daddy and Mama. Mean things? Vanessa straightened up and crossed her arms. I am telling you the truth for the first time in your spoiled little life. Your father married me because he needed someone to take care of you while he worked himself to death. I was nothing but a glorified nanny with a ring on my finger. The front door swung open, and a man walked in like he owned the place. He was carrying a suitcase in one hand and a bottle of whiskey in the other. Derek Hayes. Zara recognized her uncle immediately, but something about him was different today. He usually avoided family gatherings, showing up late to holidays and leaving early with some excuse about work. Her father used to get quiet whenever Derek's name came up, a sadness in his eyes that Zara never understood. But today, Derek walked in with his shoulders back and a smirk on his face that made Zara's stomach turn. Well, well, Derek said, dropping his suitcase on the floor with a thud. The grieving widow and the orphan brat. What a touching scene. Derek? Vanessa's whole demeanor shifted. She practically floated toward him, wrapping her arms around his neck and kissing him full on the mouth. Zara's eyes went wide. What are you doing? You are married to Daddy. Derek pulled back from the kiss and looked at Zara with amusement. Correction, kid. She was married to your daddy. Past tense. Dead men do not have wives. They have widows. He took a long swig from his whiskey bottle. And widows can do whatever they want. But that is your brother's wife. Zara's voice cracked. Daddy just died today. How can you... Derek moved fast. 1 second he was standing by the door, and the next he was right in front of Zara, his hand gripping her chin and forcing her to look up at him. Listen to me carefully, you little brat. His breath smelled like alcohol and cigarettes. Your daddy and I stopped being brothers a long time ago. He got everything. The company, the house, the money, the perfect family, and what did I get? Nothing. Scraps, handouts that he gave me like I was some kind of charity case. Zara tried to pull away, but his grip was too strong. You are hurting me. Good. Derek squeezed harder. Maybe pain will teach you to keep your mouth shut, because from now on I am the man of this house. Not your dead daddy, me. Let her go, baby. Vanessa's voice was casual, almost bored. We need her alive, at least for now. Derek released Zara's chin, leaving red marks on her brown skin. He stepped back and took another drink. You are right. The brat still has those shares in her name. Cannot do anything about that until we figure out how to transfer them legally. Zara rubbed her aching jaw. What shares? What are you talking about? Vanessa rolled her eyes. Your father, in his infinite wisdom, put 30% of the company's shares in your name. Something about securing your future. She made air quotes with her fingers. Which means that until you turn 18, those shares are controlled by your legal guardian, which is me. But I do not want shares, Zara said, backing away slowly. I just want Daddy to come back. Derek laughed a cruel sound that echoed off the walls. Well, that is not going to happen, is it? Your daddy is in a box underground, probably already being eaten by worms, and you are stuck here with us. Zara's tears started falling again. Why are you being so mean? What did I ever do to you? What did you do? Derek slammed his whiskey bottle down on the side table. You were born. That is what you did. You came into this world, and Marcus suddenly had an heir, someone to leave everything to. Before you existed, I was next in line. I would have inherited the company when he died. But then your mother got pregnant, and suddenly I was nothing. Vanessa walked over to Derek and ran her fingers through his hair. Do not get yourself worked up, baby. We have a plan. Remember, everything Marcus built is going to be ours. We just have to be patient. Zara's mind was racing, trying to understand what she was hearing. You wanted Daddy to die, did you? Did you do something to make him sick? The room went silent. Derek and Vanessa exchanged a look that made Zara's blood run cold. Smart kid, Derek muttered. Too smart. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. She does not know anything. She is just guessing. But what if she talks? What if she tells someone what she heard today? Who is she going to tell? Vanessa gestured around the empty house. Her daddy is dead. Her mama is dead. She has no grandparents, no aunts, no uncles who care about her. The only people in her life now are us. Zara's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. I am going to tell someone. I am going to tell the police that you hurt my daddy. Derek moved toward her again, but Vanessa held up a hand to stop him. Let me handle this, she said, her voice suddenly sweet again. Zara, honey, come here. Zara shook her head and backed up until she hit the wall. I said come here. The sweetness evaporated. Vanessa grabbed Zara's arm and yanked her forward so hard that the little girl stumbled and nearly fell. Ow, let go, you are hurting me. Vanessa dragged Zara through the living room, past the kitchen, and toward the back door that led to the yard. Derek followed, still drinking from his bottle. What are you doing? Zara screamed, trying to dig her heels into the floor. Where are you taking me? Vanessa did not answer. She threw open the back door and pulled Zara outside into the cold November air. Please? Zara was crying openly now, tears and snot running down her face. Please, I am sorry. I will not tell anyone, I promise. Kakanos. Vanessa stopped in the middle of the yard and released Zara's arm, sending the child stumbling onto the grass. You know what my grandmother used to say about black children? Zara scrambled backward, her teddy bear still clutched to her chest. No, I do not know. She used to say that black children carry darkness inside them, bad luck, curses. Vanessa picked up a bucket that was sitting by the garden hose. She said the only way to cleanse a house of that darkness is to wash it away with cold water, drive out the evil spirits. Derek leaned against the doorframe, watching with amusement. Sounds like good old Southern wisdom to me. Please do not do this, Zara begged. I will be good. I will be quiet. I will do whatever you say. Vanessa turned on the garden hose and began filling the bucket. The water came out ice cold, chilled by the late autumn temperature. You should have thought about that before you opened your big mouth about telling the police. I will not tell. I swear I will not tell anyone. You are right. Vanessa lifted the full bucket with both hands. You will not. She threw the water directly at Zara's face. The shock of the cold was beyond anything Zara had ever experienced. It was like being stabbed by 1,000 needles all at once. She could not breathe. She could not think. Her body convulsed, her teeth chattered, and a sound came out of her mouth that was somewhere between a scream and a gasp. Look at that, Derek said, strolling over, like a drowned rat. Zara was shaking so violently that she could barely hold on to her teddy bear. Her funeral dress, the pretty black one that her father had bought for her mother's memorial service and that she had worn again today for his, was soaked through and clinging to her skin. Please, she stammered, her lips turning blue. I am so cold. Vanessa dropped the empty bucket and looked down at her with disgust. Good. Maybe you will catch pneumonia and die. Save us all a lot of trouble. Derek walked over to where Zara's teddy bear lay on the wet grass. He picked it up, examined it for a moment, then deliberately dropped it into a puddle and stepped on it, grinding his shoe into the worn fabric. No. Zara lunged forward, trying to rescue her bear. Please not, Coco Mama gave her to me. Derek kicked the bear further away. Your mama is dead, kid. She does not care about this stupid toy anymore, and neither should you. Zara crawled across the wet grass, her whole body shaking, and wrapped her arms around the soaked teddy bear. She held it against her chest and began to rock back and forth, sobbing uncontrollably. Mama, she whispered into the bear's ear. Daddy, where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? Vanessa grabbed Zara's arm and hauled her to her feet. I will tell you what you are going to do. You are going to stand right here until I decide what to do with you. If you move, if you try to run, if you make any noise at all, I will fill that bucket again and again until you freeze to death. Do you understand me? Zara nodded weakly, too cold and too terrified to speak. Good. Vanessa turned and walked back toward the house, Derek following close behind. At the door, she paused and looked back. Oh, and Zara, if any of the neighbors ask what happened, you fell into the pool. Got it? Yes? The door slammed shut and Zara was alone. She stood in the middle of the yard, shivering in her soaked clothes, clutching her ruined teddy bear, and looked around desperately for help. Old Mrs. Patterson from across the street was standing on her porch, her hand over her mouth. The Chen family next door was watching from their window. The Johnsons' teenage son had stopped taking out the trash to stare. Zara raised her hand weakly, reaching out toward Mrs. Patterson. Please? She called out, her voice hoarse and broken. Please help me. I am so cold. Please. Mrs. Patterson's face twisted with something that might have been guilt or fear. She looked at Zara for a long moment, then turned around and went back inside her house, closing the door firmly behind her. One by one, the other neighbors did the same. Curtains were drawn, doors were closed. Within a minute, it was as if no one had ever been watching at all. Zara's last hope shattered. She sank to her knees on the wet grass, hugging Coco against her chest, and let out a wail of despair that came from somewhere deep in her soul. It was the sound of a child who had lost everything. Parents, home, safety, hope. Daddy, she sobbed, rocking back and forth. Daddy, please come back. Please do not leave me alone. I will be good, I promise. Just please come back. But Daddy could not hear her. Daddy was in a box underground, just like Derek said. Daddy was never coming back. Zara did not know how long she knelt there in the cold. Minutes felt like hours. Her fingers went numb. Her teeth would not stop chattering. She could feel herself getting sleepy, which some distant part of her brain knew was bad, very bad, but she could not make herself care anymore. Maybe if she fell asleep here, she would wake up in heaven with Mama and Daddy. Maybe that would be better than staying here with the monsters who had taken over her house. She was just starting to close her eyes when she heard it. The sound of an engine, powerful and deep, getting closer. Tires screeched against the pavement. A car door slammed. Footsteps, heavy and fast, coming toward the gate. What in the name of God is going on here? The voice was deep and commanding, filled with a rage that seemed to crackle through the air like electricity. Zara forced her eyes open and looked up. A tall black man stood at the entrance of the yard. He was wearing a dark suit that fit him like it was made just for his body. His shoulders were broad, his posture straight, his presence overwhelming. Rain was starting to fall now, just a light drizzle, but he did not seem to notice or care. He was staring at Zara with an expression of absolute horror. Jesus Christ, he breathed. Zara, is that you? Zara tried to speak, but her teeth were chattering too hard. She could only nod weakly. The man moved faster than Zara thought possible for someone his size. In 3 long strides, he was across the yard and kneeling beside her. He ripped off his suit jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders, pulling her against his chest. You are freezing, he said, his voice tight with barely controlled fury. How long have you been out here? Who did this to you? Zara could not answer. She was shaking too hard, crying too hard, trying to absorb the sudden warmth of his body heat through the expensive fabric of his jacket. The back door of the house flew open and Vanessa came storming out, her face a mask of false concern. Malcolm, oh my goodness, I did not know you were coming. What did you do to this child? Malcolm's voice was quiet, but there was something in it that made Vanessa stop dead in her tracks. What? Nothing. I do not know what you are talking about. The girl was playing in the yard and she fell into the... Do not lie to me. Malcolm stood up slowly, still holding Zara against him. I saw what I saw. I heard what I heard. You threw water on this child and left her outside to freeze. Derek appeared in the doorway behind Vanessa, his bottle of whiskey still in his hand. Now hold on just a minute. Who the hell do you think you are, coming onto our property and making accusations? Malcolm turned his gaze to Derek, and something in his eyes made the other man take an involuntary step back. I am Malcolm Carter. I was Marcus Williams' best friend for 25 years. I was the best man at his wedding to Nicole. I was there when Zara was born. I am the godfather listed on her birth certificate. His voice dropped to something dangerous. And you, Derek, are the worthless brother who got cut out of the family business for embezzling funds. So do not talk to me about property. This house belongs to Marcus's daughter, not to you. Derek's face flushed red. That is ancient history. Marcus forgave me for that. No, he did not. Malcolm shook his head slowly. He told me right before he got sick that cutting you off was the hardest thing he ever had to do, but he said he could not trust you anymore. He said there was something broken inside you that he could not fix. Marcus was a self-righteous bastard who thought he was better than everyone else. Marcus was the best man I ever knew, and if he could see what you are doing to his daughter right now, he would destroy you. Dummy. Vanessa stepped forward, trying to regain control of the situation. Malcolm, you are overreacting. Zara and I had a small disagreement, that is all. She threw a tantrum after the funeral, and I was trying to calm her down. Things got a little out of hand, but... Out of hand? Malcolm's laugh was bitter and cold. You threw a bucket of ice water on a 6-year-old child in 40-degree weather. You left her outside, shivering, while you went back into the warm house. That is not a disagreement. That is abuse. You have no proof of anything. Malcolm held up his phone. I have video. I started recording the moment I pulled up and saw what was happening. Would you like me to play it for you, or should I just send it directly to the police? Vanessa's face went pale. You would not dare. Try me. For a long moment, no one moved. The rain was falling harder now, soaking into Malcolm's shirt, but he did not seem to notice. His entire focus was on Vanessa and Derek, his eyes never leaving their faces. Finally, Vanessa spoke through clenched teeth. What do you want, Malcolm? I want you to go back inside the house and stay there. I am taking Zara with me. You cannot do that. I am her legal guardian. We will let the courts decide that. In the meantime, this child is not spending another night under the same roof as you. Derek took a threatening step forward. Listen here, big shot. You cannot just waltz in and take our meal ticket. That girl has company shares worth millions, and we are not letting her out of our sight. Malcolm's expression did not change. If you take one more step toward us, I will break both of your legs. And then I will call the police and show them the video of your girlfriend abusing a child. Your choice. Derek froze. Vanessa grabbed his arm and pulled him back. Let him take her, she hissed. We will get her back. We have lawyers. We have rights. Smart decision. Malcolm adjusted Zara in his arms and began walking toward the gate. My attorney will be in touch. This is not over, Vanessa screamed at his back. You cannot protect her forever, Malcolm. That girl belongs to us. Malcolm stopped and turned around one last time. She does not belong to anyone. She is a child, not property. And if you ever come near her again, I will make sure you spend the rest of your lives in prison. He walked through the gate and toward his car, a sleek black Mercedes that was already running, the driver's door hanging open from when he had jumped out in his rush to reach Zara. Wait, Zara whispered, her voice barely audible. Coco, I need Coco. Malcolm looked down at her. Who is Coco Camino? My teddy bear. Mama gave her to me. She is in the yard. Malcolm did not hesitate. He set Zara gently on the passenger seat, went back to the yard, and retrieved the soaked, muddy teddy bear from the grass. He brought it back and placed it in Zara's arms. There you go, sweetheart. Coco is safe. Zara clutched the bear against her chest and started crying again, but this time the tears felt different, less desperate, more relieved. Malcolm got into the driver's seat and started the car. As he pulled away from the curb, Zara twisted around to look out the back window. She could see Vanessa and Derek still standing in the yard watching the car drive away. Vanessa's face was twisted with fury. Derek was shouting something into his phone. They are mad, Zara said quietly. Good. Malcolm's jaw was tight. They should be. They drove in silence for a while. The windshield wipers beat a steady rhythm against the rain, and the heater blasted warm air that slowly began to thaw Zara's frozen limbs. Finally, she gathered the courage to speak. Mr. Malcolm? Just Malcolm is fine, sweetheart. Malcolm, she tested the name. Where are we going? To my apartment. You need to get warm and dry and eat something. And then what? Malcolm glanced over at her and his expression softened. And then we figure out the rest together? Zara was quiet for a moment processing this. Then she asked the question that had been burning in her chest since she saw him walk through the gate. Did you really know my daddy? Yes. Malcolm's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He was my best friend for 25 years. He never told me about you. He did not talk much about the past, but I promise you, Zara, I knew your father better than almost anyone in this world, and I know that he loved you more than anything. Zara hugged Coco tighter. Then why did he leave me? Why did he get sick and die? Malcolm did not answer right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. I do not know why he got sick, sweetheart. Sometimes bad things happen to good people for no reason at all. But I promise you this, I am going to find out the truth. And I am going to make sure that whoever is responsible pays for what they did. You think someone made Daddy sick on purpose? Malcolm looked at her in the rearview mirror and something flickered in his eyes. Pain, suspicion, determination. I do not know yet, but I intend to find out. The car pulled into an underground parking garage beneath a tall glass building. Malcolm parked in a spot marked reserved and cut the engine. He came around to Zara's side and opened the door, then lifted her out of the car and carried her toward the elevator. The doorman in the lobby, an older black man in a crisp uniform, looked up as they entered. Good evening, Mr. Carter. Is everything all right? Not now, Henry. Malcolm did not slow down. I will explain later. The elevator took them up to the top floor. Malcolm carried Zara down a carpeted hallway and stopped in front of a door at the end. He shifted her weight to one arm and pressed his thumb against a small screen. The door clicked open. Inside was a spacious apartment with large windows that looked out over the Atlanta skyline. Zara could see the lights of the city twinkling through the rain, but she was too tired and cold to really appreciate the view. Malcolm carried her straight to the bathroom and set her down on a small stool. Can you stand by yourself? Zara nodded weakly. Good. I'm going to turn on the shower and let it get warm. You take off those wet clothes and get in. There will be a towel and some dry clothes waiting for you when you get out. But I do not have any clothes here. I will find something. Malcolm turned on the shower and adjusted the temperature. Take as long as you need. Just get warm. He left, closing the door behind him. Zara sat on the stool for a moment, still clutching Coco. She looked down at the teddy bear, at its matted fur and muddy patches, and felt a wave of exhaustion and wash over her. Mama, she whispered to the bear. I do not know what is happening. I do not know if I can trust this man, but he was nice to me, and he saved us from Vanessa, so maybe he is okay. She set Coco on the counter and peeled off her soaked funeral dress. It fell to the floor with a wet splat. She stepped into the shower and let the hot water cascade over her frozen skin. At first it hurt. The contrast between her ice-cold body and the warm water was almost painful, but gradually the feeling returned. Turned to her fingers and toes, and the shivering began to subside. Zara stood under the water for a long time, letting it wash away the cold, the fear, the horror of the day. She thought about her father lying in that coffin. She thought about her mother gone for 3 years now. She thought about Vanessa's cruel words and Derek's bruising grip. And she cried. Deep, racking sobs that she had been holding back all day. She cried for her parents, for herself, for the life she used to have that was now gone forever. When she finally stepped out of the shower, she found a fluffy towel waiting for her along with a t-shirt that came down to her knees and a pair of sweatpants that she had to roll up several times at the ankles. She put on the clothes, gathered up Coco, and padded barefoot out of the bathroom. Malcolm was in the kitchen, standing over a pot on the stove. The smell of chicken soup filled the air, and despite everything, Zara's stomach growled. He looked up when she entered. Feeling better? A little. Zara climbed onto one of the tall chairs at the kitchen island. I am still scared, though. That is understandable. Malcolm ladled soup into a bowl and set it in front of her with a spoon. Eat. You need to get something warm inside you. Zara looked at the soup, then back at Malcolm. Is it okay? I do not want to be greedy. Something shifted in Malcolm's expression. Pain. Recognition. Like he understood something that Zara did not even realize she had revealed. Zara, listen to me. He pulled up a chair and sat across from her. In this house, you do not need to ask permission to eat. You do not need to apologize for being hungry. You do not need to be afraid of taking up space. Do you understand? Zara blinked at him, confused. But Vanessa always said, Vanessa is gone. Malcolm's voice was firm but gentle. Whatever rules she had, whatever things she told you, they do not apply here. In this house, you eat when you are hungry. You sleep when you are tired. You speak when you have something to say. Those are the only rules." Zara did not know how to respond. She had spent 2 years learning to be invisible, to not ask for too much, to accept whatever scraps Vanessa decided to give her. The idea that she could just exist without apologizing for it was foreign and strange. But the soup smelled so good, and she was so hungry. She picked up the spoon and took a small bite. It was warm and rich and delicious, and before she knew it, she was eating faster, scooping up spoonful after spoonful. Malcolm watched her eat without saying anything, his hands folded on the table. When she slowed down, he spoke again. "Zara, I need to ask you some questions. Is that okay?" She nodded, her mouth still full. "How long has Vanessa been treating you like this?" Zara swallowed and thought about it. "Since Daddy got really sick. Before that, she pretended to be nice when he was watching. But when he had to go to the hospital, she stopped pretending." "And Derek? When did he start coming around?" "A few months ago, he would visit when Daddy was sleeping. He and Vanessa would talk in the living room and laugh about things I did not understand." Malcolm's jaw tightened. "Did they ever talk about your father getting sick, about his medicine or his doctors?" Zara frowned, trying to remember. "Sometimes. Derek would bring bottles of pills and give them to Vanessa. She would put them in Daddy's food. She said they were vitamins to help him get stronger." Malcolm went very still. "Did your father know she was putting pills in his food?" "No, she always did it when he was not looking. She told me it was a secret, and that if I said anything, she would send me to an orphanage where no one would ever love me." Malcolm closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them again, Zara saw something burning there. Rage. Pure white-hot rage that he was barely keeping contained. "Zara," he said carefully, his voice controlled, "I need you to tell me everything you remember about those pills. What they looked like, when Vanessa gave them to your father. Everything." So Zara told him. She told him about the white pills that Vanessa crushed into powder and mixed into Marcus's morning orange juice. She told him about the brown bottles that Derek brought in unmarked bags. She told him about the nights when her father would clutch his chest and say his heart was racing, and Vanessa would give him more pills that she said would help, but that seemed to make him worse. By the time she finished, Malcolm had his phone out and was typing rapidly. "Who are you texting?" Zara asked. "A friend. A lawyer who can help us." Malcolm set his phone down and looked at her with an intensity that made Zara feel both scared and safe at the same time. "Zara, what you just told me is very important. It might help us understand why your father got sick." "You mean Vanessa and Derek made Daddy sick on purpose?" Malcolm hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I think so, but I need proof before I can go to the police. I need evidence." Zara hugged Coco against her chest, thinking hard. Then she remembered something. "Malcolm, there is something weird about Coco." "What do you mean?" Zara held up the teddy bear and pointed to its ear. "The stitches are coming loose here, and when I hug her really tight, I can feel something hard inside, something that should not be there." Malcolm leaned forward. "Can I see?" Zara handed over the bear reluctantly. Malcolm examined the loose seam, then carefully pulled at the stitches until the gap widened. He reached inside past the stuffing, and his fingers found something small and hard. He pulled it out and held it up to the light. It was a USB drive, small and silver, no bigger than his thumbnail. Zara stared at it. "What is that Malcolm did not answer. His face had gone pale, and his hands were trembling slightly as he turned the tiny device over in his fingers. "Malcolm, what is wrong?" He looked at her, and Zara saw tears forming in his eyes. "Zara, your mother did not die in an accident. She was murdered, and I think she knew it was going to happen." "What? How do you know that?" Malcolm held up the USB drive. "Because she hid this inside your teddy bear. The bear she gave you right before she died. She must have known that one day you would find it." Zara's mind was spinning. "But what is on it? I do not know yet." Malcolm stood up abruptly. "But we are going to find out." He walked to his home office, Zara following close behind with Coco clutched against her chest. He sat down at his desk, plugged the USB drive into his laptop, and waited. A single file appeared on the screen. An audio file dated 3 years ago, the day before Nicole Williams died. Malcolm looked at Zara. "Are you ready for this?" Zara did not know if she was ready. She did not know if she would ever be ready, but she nodded anyway. Malcolm clicked play. At first, there was just static. Then voices. 2 men talking in low tones. "Are you sure about this?" The first voice was nervous, uncertain. "Do not get cold feet now." The second voice made Zara's blood run cold. She recognized it instantly. "Derek. We have come too far to back out. But cutting the brakes. If something goes wrong, nothing is going to go wrong. Nicole takes that route every day. The curve at Miller's Crossing is dangerous even under normal conditions. Everyone will think it was just a tragic accident. And what about Marcus? He will be devastated. Derek laughed and the sound was ugly. Marcus will get over it. He will find another wife eventually, and when he does, I will make sure she is someone we can control, someone who understands what needs to happen. There was a pause, then the nervous voice spoke again. You mean Vanessa? Exactly. She is perfect, beautiful, greedy, and completely ruthless. She will marry Marcus, wait until the time is right, and then we will take everything. The company, the money, the house, all of it. But what about the kid? Marcus has a daughter. Derek's voice went hard. The kid is not going to be a problem. One way or another, we will deal with her when the time comes. The recording ended. Zara stood frozen, unable to breathe, unable to think. Her mother, her beautiful, kind mother who used to sing her lullabies and braid her hair and tell her stories about princesses and dragons. Derek had killed her. Derek had cut the brakes on her car and sent her careening off Miller's Crossing, and Zara's mother had died alone in a twisted heap of metal while Derek laughed about it with his accomplice. Mama? Zara whispered, her voice breaking. Mama, no. Malcolm grabbed her and pulled her against his chest, holding her tight as she broke down completely. She screamed and sobbed and pounded her small fists against his shoulders, and he just held her, absorbing her grief and rage without flinching. I am sorry, he murmured into her hair. I am so sorry, sweetheart. I should have known. I should have seen it. They killed Mama. Zara's voice was raw and ragged. They killed Mama, and now they killed Daddy, too. They are monsters. I know. And I promise you, Zara, I promise on my life they are going to pay for what they did. Both of them. I will not rest until they are behind bars. Zara did not know how long she cried. It felt like hours. But eventually the tears ran dry and exhaustion took over. She slumped against Malcolm, her eyes swollen and her throat sore. What happens now? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Malcolm gently lifted her and carried her to the guest bedroom. He tucked her into the soft bed and pulled the covers up to her chin. Now you rest. You have been through more today than any child should ever have to go through. Let me handle the rest. But I am scared. What if Vanessa comes to get me? Malcolm sat down on the edge of the bed and took her hand. She will not get anywhere near you, I promise. I have a very good security system, and I have already called for extra guards. No one is getting into this building without my permission. Zara wanted to argue to stay awake and make sure he was telling the truth, but her eyes were so heavy and the bed was so warm, and the exhaustion was pulling her down into darkness. Malcolm, she murmured, already half asleep. Yes? Why are you helping me? You do not have to. You could just walk away. Malcolm was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. 25 years ago, I was a scared kid hiding under a table while my stepfather beat me. I had no one. No family who cared. No friends who knew. No hope that things would ever get better. He paused. And then one night, I ran to your father's house bleeding and broken, and he opened the door. He did not ask questions. He did not turn me away. He just pulled me inside and said, "You're safe now." And for the first time in my life, I believed it. Zara's eyes fluttered open. Daddy saved you. He did. He saved my life that night, and then he spent the next 25 years being the brother I never had. Malcolm squeezed her hand. So, to answer your question, Zara, I am helping you because your father would have done the same for me. Because you deserve to have someone in your corner. And because whether you know it or not, you are not alone. Zara felt a single tear slide down her cheek. I wish Daddy was here. I know, sweetheart. I wish he was here too. Malcolm stood up and moved toward the door. But he left you something better than wishes. He left you proof. He left you allies. And he left you a fighting chance. Now rest. Tomorrow we start fighting back. He turned off the light and closed the door part way, leaving a sliver of light from the hallway. Zara lay in the darkness, hugging Coco against her chest, feeling the outline of the spot where the USB drive had been hidden for 3 years. Her mother had known. Somehow Nicole had known that Derek was planning to kill her, and she had hidden evidence inside Zara's teddy bear. Evidence that would one day bring her killers to justice. I found it, Mama, Zara whispered to the darkness. I found what you left me, and I'm not going to let them get away with it. Outside the window, the rain continued to fall. Somewhere across the city, Vanessa and Derek were plotting their next move, And in a quiet apartment high above Atlanta, a little girl with a teddy bear full of secrets was about to become the most important witness in a murder investigation that no one saw coming. Zara closed her eyes and let the exhaustion take her. Tomorrow, everything would change. Zara woke up screaming. The nightmare was still clinging to her images of her mother's car spinning off the road, of Derek's laughter echoing through the darkness of Vanessa's cold eyes, watching her freeze in the yard. Zara, wake up! Strong hands gripped her shoulders, and she thrashed against them before her eyes finally focused on Malcolm's face. He was kneeling beside the bed, his expression tight with worry. "It is okay," he said, his voice firm but gentle. "You are safe. It was just a dream." Zara's chest was heaving, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. "I saw Mama. I saw her car going off the cliff, and Derek was laughing. He was standing there watching and laughing." Malcolm pulled her into a hug, and she clung to him like he was the only solid thing in a world that kept tilting and spinning. "I know, sweetheart. I know." The clock on the nightstand read 6:47 a.m. Gray morning light was filtering through the curtains, and Zara could hear the distant sound of traffic from the streets below. "Did you sleep at all?" she asked, pulling back to look at Malcolm's face. He had dark circles under his eyes, and his shirt was wrinkled like he had been wearing it all night. "A little." He stood up and ran a hand over his face. "I was going over some things, making calls. My lawyer will be here soon." Zara's stomach tightened. "The police, are we going to tell them about the USB? "Not yet. First we need to make sure the evidence is solid. We need to verify that the recording is authentic, that it cannot be dismissed as a fake. And we need to build a case that will hold up in court." Malcolm moved toward the door. "Get dressed. There are some clothes in the closet that should fit you. I had my assistant bring them over last night." "You have an assistant?" "I have a lot of things, Zara. Right now, the only thing that matters is keeping you safe and making sure Vanessa and Derek pay for what they did." He left, and Zara sat alone in the bed, clutching Coco against her chest. The teddy bear still smelled faintly of mud and rain, a reminder of everything that had happened yesterday. She pressed her nose into the worn fur and whispered, "I am scared, Mama. I do not know if I can do this." But there was no answer. There never was. She got out of bed and found the closet Malcolm had mentioned. Inside were several outfits in her size, still with the tags on. Jeans, sweaters, a warm coat. Someone had thought of everything. She chose a purple sweater because purple was her mother's favorite color, and because wearing it made her feel a little braver. When she walked into the living room at 7:03 a.m., Malcolm was standing by the door with another man. This man was older, maybe in his 50s, with gray hair and sharp eyes, behind wire-rimmed glasses. He was wearing a suit that looked expensive and carrying a leather briefcase that looked even more expensive. "Zara," Malcolm said, "this is William Anderson. He is a lawyer and a very good friend of mine. He is going to help us." Anderson bent down so he was at Zara's eye level. His voice was calm and measured. The kind of voice that made you feel like everything was going to be okay, even when it clearly was not. "Hello, Zara. I am sorry about your father. Marcus was a good man." "You knew my daddy." "I did. I handled some legal matters for him over the years. He spoke about you often. He was very proud of you." Zara felt tears pricking at her eyes again, but she blinked them back. She had cried enough. It was time to be strong. "Can you help us put Vanessa and Derek in jail?" Anderson's eyebrows rose slightly, and he glanced at Malcolm with something like respect. "Direct. I like that." He straightened up and set his briefcase on the kitchen table. "To answer your question, yes. I believe I can. But first, I need to hear everything, and I need to see this evidence Malcolm told me about." They sat around the table, and Malcolm plugged the USB drive into his laptop. Anderson listened to the recording twice, his face growing darker with each word. When it ended, he sat back in his chair and let out a long breath. "This is damning. If we can verify the authenticity, Derek Hayes is looking at first-degree murder charges for Nicole Williams' death." "What about Vanessa?" Zara asked. "She helped him. She married Daddy just so they could steal everything." "Vanessa is more complicated." Anderson steepled his fingers. "The recording proves Derek planned and executed the murder of your mother, but it does not directly implicate Vanessa in that crime. She came later as part of a separate scheme." Malcolm leaned forward. "What about Marcus? Zara told me last night that Vanessa was putting pills in his food. Pills that Derek brought over in unmarked bottles." Anderson's expression sharpened. "That changes things. If we can prove that Vanessa was poisoning Marcus, we have a case for attempted murder, or even murder depending on the autopsy results." "But Daddy was already buried," Zara said, her voice small. "We cannot do an autopsy now." Actually, we can. Anderson opened his briefcase and pulled out a legal pad. With sufficient evidence of foul play, a judge can order an exhumation. It is not pleasant, but it is possible. Zara did not know what exhumation meant, but she could guess. They would have to dig up her father's body. The thought made her stomach turn. I do not want them to hurt Daddy anymore, she whispered. Malcolm reached over and squeezed her hand. They will not hurt him, sweetheart. They will just run some tests to find out the truth. Your father would want us to know the truth. Anderson made some notes on his legal pad. I will file for a temporary restraining order against Vanessa and Derek today. That will keep them legally required to stay away from Zara. I will also file for emergency custody transfer, arguing that Vanessa poses an immediate danger to the child. How long will that take? Malcolm asked. The restraining order can be issued within 24 hours if we have a sympathetic judge. The custody transfer is more complicated. We will need a hearing witnesses' evidence, a few weeks at minimum. We do not have a few weeks. Malcolm stood up and began pacing. Vanessa is not going to sit quietly while we build a case against her. She is going to fight back. As if on cue, Malcolm's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his face went hard. What is it? Zara asked. Malcolm turned the phone so she could see. It was a news article posted just 15 minutes ago. The headline read, Millionaire Malcolm Carter kidnaps heiress in custody dispute. Below the headline was a photo of Vanessa standing in front of the Williams house, her eyes red from crying, holding a framed photo of Marcus. The article described her as a grieving widow who had been violently separated from her stepdaughter by a ruthless businessman with a history of aggressive takeovers. They are lying. Zara jumped to her feet. She is the one who hurt me. She is the one who threw water on me. I know. Malcolm's jaw was clenched so tight that Zara could see the muscles working. But right now, she is controlling the narrative. She got to the press first. Anderson was already on his phone scrolling through more articles. It is everywhere. CNN, Fox, local Atlanta news. Someone paid a lot of money to get this story out fast. Derek. Malcolm spat the name like a curse. He still has connections in media from his days at the company, before Marcus fired him. The doorbell rang, making everyone jump. Malcolm checked the security camera on his phone and his expression relaxed slightly. It is Henry, the doorman. He opened the door and Henry stepped inside, looking nervous. He was holding a stack of newspapers. Mr. Carter, I thought you should see these. The reporters have been gathering outside the building all morning. They are asking questions about the little girl. Malcolm took the newspapers and flipped through them. Each one had some variation of the same story. Kidnapping, custody battle, grieving widow versus ruthless millionaire. Thank you, Henry. Can you make sure no one gets up here without my explicit permission? Already done, sir. Building security is on high alert. Henry left and Malcolm turned back to Anderson. We need to get ahead of this. I need to make a statement. Not yet. Anderson held up a hand. If you go on camera now, you will look defensive, like you have something to hide. Let me work on getting the restraining order first. Once we have legal protection in place, we can start pushing back. Zara tugged on Malcolm's sleeve. What about the video? You said you recorded what Vanessa did to me. Can we show that to the reporters? Malcolm and Anderson exchanged a look. The video is powerful evidence, Anderson said slowly. But if we release it to the media before the court hearing, it could be seen as trying to prejudice the case. The judge might not like that. So we just let them keep lying about us. Malcolm knelt down so he was at Zara's eye level. Sometimes, sweetheart, the right thing to do is not the easy thing. We have to be smart about this. We have to play the long game. But Vanessa is playing right now. She is telling everyone you are a bad person, and they believe her. Let them believe whatever they want for now. The truth will come out. It always does. Zara wanted to argue, but she could see the determination in Malcolm's eyes. He had a plan. She just had to trust him. At 9:30 a.m., Anderson left to file the legal paperwork. Malcolm made Zara eat some breakfast, even though she did not feel hungry. Then he told her they were going out. Where? Zara asked, clutching Coco nervously. To the library. I have a friend there who might be able to help us. They took a back exit out of the building to avoid the reporters gathered at the front entrance. Malcolm's driver, a big man named Thomas, who did not talk much, was waiting with the car in a side alley. The Atlanta Public Library was huge and quiet, the kind of place that smelled like old books and secrets. Malcolm led Zara past the main desk and into a back section labeled Digital Archives. A young black woman looked up from her computer as they approached. She was in her late 20s with natural hair pulled back in a puff and kind eyes behind fashionable glasses. Her name tag read Jasmine Carter Digital Archivist. Malcolm, she stood up and hugged him warmly. I got your message this morning. What is going on? Jasmine, this is Zara, Marcus Williams' daughter. Jasmine's expression softened immediately. Oh, honey, I heard about your daddy. I am so sorry. Thank you, Zara said quietly. Malcolm lowered his voice. Jasmine, I need your help. We are looking into some irregularities with Marcus's business and medical records. I need someone who knows how to dig through databases and find things that people want to stay hidden. Jasmine glanced around to make sure no one was listening. What kind of things? Stock transfers that might have been forged, medical records that might have been altered, anything connected to Vanessa Collins Williams or Derek Hayes. Jasmine's eyes widened. You think they did something to Marcus? I think they killed him, slowly over months with poison disguised as medicine, and I think they killed Nicole 3 years ago by cutting the brakes on her car. For a moment, Jasmine just stared at him. Then she sat down heavily in her chair. Jesus, Malcolm, this is big. I know, that is why I need your help. You are the best researcher I know. If there is evidence out there, you will find it. Jasmine looked at Zara, at the teddy bear clutched in her small arms, at the fear and exhaustion in her young eyes. Something hardened in her expression. Tell me everything. For the next 2 hours, they sat in Jasmine's small office while she worked her magic on the computers. Zara did not understand most of what she was doing, but she watched in fascination as screen after screen of documents and records appeared. At 11:47 a.m., Jasmine let out a sharp breath. Malcolm, come look at this. He leaned over her shoulder and his face went pale. What is it? Zara asked, jumping up from her chair. Malcolm turned the screen so she could see. It was some kind of official document full of numbers and signatures. This is a stock transfer agreement, he explained, his voice tight. It says that your father transferred 30% of his company's shares to Vanessa. The transfer is dated March 14th. See? Is that bad? March 14th is the day your father was admitted to the hospital for emergency heart problems. According to the medical records, he was sedated and unconscious for 48 hours. Zara's eyes went wide. So he could not have signed it. Exactly. Malcolm pointed to the signature on the document. Someone forged his name, and I think I know who. Jasmine pulled up another screen. There is more. I found Dr. Raymond Price's financial records. He was Marcus's primary physician during his illness. What about them? He received 3 large deposits in the past 8 months, $50,000 each. The deposits came from a shell company registered in Delaware, but when I traced the ownership, she clicked a few more keys. The company is controlled by Derek Hayes. Malcolm slammed his fist on the desk, making Zara jump. They bribed the doctor. They paid him to prescribe medications that were making Marcus worse, not better. Can we prove it? Zara asked. Jasmine nodded slowly. With these records, yes. It will take some time to put together a complete picture, but the evidence is here. Derek and Vanessa have been planning this for years. Years? Malcolm frowned. What do you mean? Jasmine pulled up one more document. I found corporate registration records for that shell company in Delaware, the one that paid off the doctor. And it was incorporated 5 years ago, 2 years before Marcus even met Vanessa. The room went silent. Zara felt like the floor was tilting beneath her feet. 5 years ago. That meant Derek had been planning to kill Marcus for 5 years. Before Vanessa, before the pills, before everything. He was waiting, Malcolm said slowly, the horror dawning on his face. He killed Nicole to isolate Marcus. Then he waited for the right person to come along, someone he could use to get close to Marcus again. Vanessa? Jasmine whispered. They must have met somewhere. Derek probably targeted her specifically, found someone beautiful and greedy and willing to do anything for money. Malcolm ran his hands over his face. My God, this was not a crime of opportunity. This was a long-term assassination plan. Zara's knees gave out and she sank into a chair. Derek hated Daddy that much for 5 years. Malcolm knelt beside her. Some people carry hate inside them, like a disease, Zara. It eats at them and twists them until they cannot see anything else. Derek blamed your father for everything wrong in his life, even though most of those problems were his own fault. But Daddy loved him. Daddy always said he wished Derek would get better. I know, sweetheart. Your father had a good heart. Too good sometimes. Malcolm's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his expression darkened. What now? Jasmine asked. Anderson. He says to turn on the news. Jasmine grabbed a remote and clicked on a small television mounted in the corner of the office. The screen flickered into life, showing a live press conference. Vanessa was standing behind a podium covered in microphones. Her eyes were red, her voice trembling, and she was clutching a tissue like it was a lifeline. "I just want my daughter back," she was saying, dabbing at her tears. "Malcolm Carter is a dangerous man. He stormed into our home and took Zara against her will. I am terrified of what he might be doing to her." A reporter shouted a question. "Mrs. Williams, some people are saying that you abused Zara, that you threw water on her and left her outside in the cold. How do you respond to those allegations?" Vanessa let out a sob that sounded perfectly rehearsed. "Those are vicious lies spread by Malcolm Carter to justify his kidnapping of my child. I would never hurt Zara. I love her like she was my own daughter." Zara felt rage boiling up inside her. "She is lying. She is lying right to everyone's face." "I know," Malcolm said grimly, "but look at the reporters. They believe her." It was true. The journalists gathered around Vanessa were nodding sympathetically, some of them even looking angry on her behalf. "We have to stop her," Zara said. "We have to tell everyone the truth." "We will, but first we need more evidence. We need witnesses who saw what really happened." Jasmine looked up. "What about the neighbors? Someone must have seen Vanessa throw that water on her." Malcolm nodded slowly. "There was an older woman. She was standing on her porch watching, and a man who lives on the street. He looked homeless." "Do you know their names?" "No, but I know where they live." At 2:15 p.m., Malcolm and Zara pulled up outside the Williams house. The reporters had moved on to chase other stories, and the street was quiet. Malcolm parked across from the old Victorian house next door and turned to Zara. "Stay in the car, I will be right back." "But I want to come. It is safer here. If Vanessa sees you, there is no telling what she might do." Zara wanted to argue, but the look in Malcolm's eyes stopped her. She nodded and slumped back in her seat, hugging Coco. Malcolm walked up to the Victorian house and knocked on the door. A moment later, it cracked open, and an elderly black woman peered out. She was in her 70s at least, with white hair and tired eyes. "Mrs. Wilson, my name is Malcolm Carter. I was a friend of Marcus Williams." The woman's eyes darted nervously to the Williams house across the street. "I know who you are. I saw you yesterday. You took the little girl away." "Yes, ma'am, I did, because her stepmother was abusing her." Mrs. Wilson pressed her lips together and started to close the door. "I do not want any trouble." Malcolm put his hand on the door, stopping it. "Mrs. Wilson, please. I saw you watching yesterday. You saw what Vanessa did. You saw her throw water on Zara and leave her outside to freeze." "I did not see anything." "Timmy's." "Yes, you did. And I understand that you were scared. Vanessa and Derek have money and connections. They could make your life very difficult." Malcolm's voice softened. "But Zara is 6 years old. Her mother is dead, her father is dead, and the people who killed them are trying to destroy her. She needs someone to stand up for her. She needs a witness who will tell the truth." Mrs. Wilson's eyes filled with tears. "I wanted to help her. Yesterday, when I saw that poor child shivering in the yard, I wanted to go over there and wrap her in a blanket. But I was afraid. Vanessa had already warned me about minding my own business." "Warned you?" "Last month. I asked her why Zara was not in school, and she told me to keep my mouth shut if I knew what was good for me." Mrs. Wilson shook her head. "That woman is evil, pure evil. I knew it from the first moment I saw her." "Then help us stop her, please." For a long moment, Mrs. Wilson just stood there, her hand on the door, her face a mask of indecision. Then she sighed and stepped back. "Come inside, Mr. Carter. I will tell you everything I saw." Malcolm spent 30 minutes with Mrs. Wilson recording her statement on his phone. She described in detail how Vanessa had dragged Zara into the yard, how Derek had stepped on the child's teddy bear, how the bucket of ice water had been thrown while both of them laughed. When he came back to the car, his expression was a mixture of relief and fury. "She will testify, he told Zara. "She is scared, but she will do it." Zara felt a tiny spark of hope. "What about the other person, the man you saw? Let us find out." They drove around the corner to a small alley behind the Williams property. A tent made of blue tarps was set up against a fence, and sitting outside it on an overturned crate was a black man in his 60s. He was wearing a worn army jacket, and his beard was streaked with gray. Malcolm got out of the car and approached slowly. "Sir, my name is Malcolm Carter." The man looked up with wary eyes. "I know who you are. Saw you yesterday. Saw you take that little girl away from those monsters. You saw what happened. Saw everything." The man spat on the ground. "I am Frank Miller. Did 2 tours in Vietnam and 3 in Iraq. Seen a lot of terrible things in my life, but watching that woman throw water on that child while her man laughed, he shook his head. That was something else. Malcolm pulled out his phone. Would you be willing to make a statement to testify in court about what you saw? Frank studied him for a long moment. You serious about going after them, the wife and the brother? Deadly serious. Then yeah, I will testify. Frank's eyes hardened. Those two have been trouble since they showed up. I used to see Mr. Williams walking around his garden talking to his daughter. He was a good man, kind, always gave me food when he saw me. His voice cracked. When he got sick, I prayed for him every night, and now I find out those people killed him. We think so. We are gathering evidence now. Frank stood up and straightened his jacket. Then count me in. I may not have much, but I got my word and my honor, and I will be damned if I let them get away with what they did to that family. At 4:47 p.m., Malcolm's phone rang. It was Anderson. Malcolm, we have a problem. Someone broke into my office. What? They did not take anything as far as I can tell, but they went through all my files, specifically the ones related to Zara's case. Malcolm gripped the phone tighter. They know we are building a case against them. It gets worse. I just got off the phone with Jasmine at the library. Someone has been following her all day. A man in a black car. She is frightened. Get her somewhere safe and double the security on your office. Already done, but Malcolm, they are escalating. This is not just a custody dispute anymore. These people are dangerous. I know. Malcolm glanced at Zara, who was watching him with wide, frightened eyes. I know. He hung up and made a decision. They could not go back to the apartment. If Vanessa and Derek knew about Anderson and Jasmine, they probably knew where Malcolm lived too. Change of plans, he told Thomas the driver. Take us to the Ritz-Carlton. Use the back entrance. The Ritz-Carlton was one of the most expensive hotels in Atlanta, with security that rivaled Fort Knox. Malcolm booked a suite under a fake name, paying cash to avoid leaving a trail. At 6:30 p.m., Zara was sitting on the bed in their hotel room, hugging Coco, while Malcolm made call after call. Anderson, Jasmine, Mrs. Wilson, Frank Miller. He was putting together the pieces of a case that was becoming more dangerous by the hour. There was a knock at the door. Malcolm checked the peephole, then opened it to reveal Anderson looking harried and carrying his briefcase. I have news, Anderson said, stepping inside. Some good, some bad. Good first, Malcolm said. The restraining order was granted. Vanessa and Derek are legally required to stay at least 500 feet away from Zara at all times. Zara felt a wave of relief. So they cannot come near me anymore. Not legally, no. If they do, they can be arrested. Anderson set his briefcase on the table. But here's the bad news. I heard from a contact at the courthouse. Vanessa has filed a counter-petition for emergency custody. She is claiming that you are an unfit guardian, Malcolm, and that Zara is in danger. That is insane. I am trying to protect her. I know, but her lawyers are good. They have already scheduled a hearing for next week. Next week? Malcolm ran his hands over his face. We need more time. We have to work with what we have. Anderson turned to Zara. Sweetheart, at this hearing you might be asked to speak, to tell the judge what really happened. Are you ready for that? Zara's heart started pounding. I do not know. I am scared. It is okay to be scared, but your voice is the most powerful weapon we have. The judge will want to hear from you directly. What if no one believes me? What if they believe Vanessa instead? Anderson knelt down so he was at her eye level. Zara, I have been a lawyer for 30 years. I have seen a lot of witnesses, and I can always tell when someone is telling the truth. You are telling the truth, and when you speak from your heart, people will know it. Zara looked at Malcolm. Will you be there? Every second, I promise. At 8:23 p.m., Zara was finally starting to feel safe again when Malcolm's phone rang. He looked at the screen and frowned. Unknown number. He answered and put it on speaker. Malcolm Carter. A voice came through, low and mocking. Derek. I know you are at the Ritz-Carlton, room 1847. The little brat is with you. So is your lawyer friend. Malcolm's blood ran cold. How did you find us? I have eyes everywhere, Malcolm. You should know that by now. Derek laughed. I wanted to give you a friendly warning. Drop the case. Give Zara back to Vanessa. Walk away and forget everything you think you know. And if I do not, then bad things will start happening to the people you care about. Starting with that old woman on Maple Street. Mrs. Wilson is a nice lady. Shame if something happened to her house. Malcolm's hand tightened on the phone. If you touch her. You will what? Go to the police. They cannot prove anything. They never can. Derek's voice dropped to a whisper. I killed my brother's wife and got away with it. I poisoned my brother for 8 months and no one noticed. Do you really think a washed-up billionaire and a scared little girl are going to stop me? The line went dead. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Anderson grabbed his phone. I am calling the police. We need to get Mrs. Wilson into protective custody. But before he could dial, his phone rang. He answered, listened for a moment, and his face went white. What is it? Malcolm demanded. Anderson lowered the phone slowly. That was the police. Someone just threw a brick through Mrs. Wilson's window. She is terrified, but unhurt. Zara started to cry. This is my fault. If I had just stayed with Vanessa, none of this would be happening. Malcolm pulled her into a hug. No, sweetheart. None of this is your fault. The only people to blame are Vanessa and Derek. They are the ones hurting people, not you. But Mrs. Wilson will be protected. I promise. Malcolm looked at Anderson. Get her out of that house tonight. Put her in a hotel, somewhere safe, and find Frank Miller. If they know about Mrs. Wilson, they might go after him too. Anderson nodded and started making calls. Zara buried her face in Malcolm's chest, clutching Coco so hard that she could feel the outline of the teddy bear's seams against her fingers. There had been something hard inside Coco once. The USB drive that held the truth about her mother's murder. Her mother had hidden it there, knowing that one day Zara would find it. But what else had her mother known? What other secrets had she left behind? And more importantly, would any of it be enough to stop the monsters who were closing in on them from every side? At 10:15 p.m., Anderson returned with devastating news. Frank Miller is in the hospital. Someone attacked him behind the shelter where he was staying, beat him badly. Malcolm closed his eyes. How bad? Broken ribs. Concussion? He is stable, but he will not be able to testify for at least a month. Zara felt the walls closing in. Their witnesses were being picked off one by one. Soon there would be no one left willing to speak the truth. We need to move faster, Malcolm said. We cannot wait for the custody hearing. By then they will have destroyed all our evidence and silenced everyone who could help us. What do you suggest? Malcolm pulled out the USB drive and held it up to the light. This recording proves Derek killed Nicole. We have medical records showing the doctor was bribed. We have bank records connecting Derek to a shell company that was planning this murder for 5 years. He looked at Anderson. Can we take this to the district attorney, get criminal charges filed before the custody hearing? Anderson considered it. It is risky. If we move too fast, we might not have enough evidence to convince a grand jury. But if we wait... He did not finish the sentence. He did not have to. Make the call, Malcolm said. Set up a meeting with the DA for tomorrow morning. Anderson nodded and stepped away to make the arrangements. Zara looked up at Malcolm with exhaustion in her eyes. Do you think it will work? Do you think we can stop them? Malcolm knelt down and took her hands in his. I do not know, sweetheart, but I know we have to try. Your mother and father did not die so that Vanessa and Derek could win. They left us the truth, and we owe it to them to see this through. Even if it is dangerous. Even then. Malcolm pulled her into a hug. Some things are worth fighting for, Zara. You are one of them. Zara closed her eyes and held on tight. Outside the window, the lights of Atlanta glittered against the dark sky, beautiful and indifferent to the war being waged in the shadows. Somewhere out there, Vanessa and Derek were planning their next move. And Zara knew with a certainty that went bone deep that whatever came next would be worse than anything they had faced so far. The morning came too fast. Zara had barely slept, her dreams filled with Derek's mocking laughter and Vanessa's cold eyes. When Malcolm gently shook her awake at 6:15 a.m., she felt like she had not rested at all. We need to get moving, Malcolm said, his voice tense. The meeting with the district attorney is at 8. Zara sat up and rubbed her eyes. Do you think she will believe us? I think the evidence speaks for itself, but we need to be prepared for anything. Anderson was already in the living room of the hotel suite, his briefcase open on the table, papers spread out in neat piles. He looked like he had not slept either. I got word from the hospital, Anderson said as Malcolm and Zara entered. Frank Miller is awake. He is in pain, but he is coherent, and he is angry. Angry enough to still testify, Malcolm asked. He said, and I quote, "Those bastards picked the wrong veteran to mess with. I will crawl to that courtroom if I have to." Zara felt a surge of gratitude for the homeless man who barely knew her but was willing to fight for her anyway. At 7:30 a.m., they left the hotel through a service entrance. Thomas was waiting with the car, his eyes constantly scanning for threats. The drive to the Fulton County District Attorney's office took 20 minutes, and Zara spent every second of it clutching Coco and praying. The DA's office was on the 5th floor of a gray government building. A secretary led them to a conference room where a black woman in her 50s was waiting. She had sharp eyes, silver-streaked hair, and an expression that said she had seen everything and was not easily impressed. "Mr. Carter, Mr. Anderson." She shook their hands firmly. "I am District Attorney Patricia Morgan, and this must be Zara." Zara nodded shyly. "Yes, ma'am." D.A. Morgan studied her for a moment, then turned to the adults. "I have reviewed the preliminary materials you sent over last night. I have to say, if even half of this is true, we are looking at one of the most calculated murder conspiracies I have seen in my 30 years as a prosecutor." "It is all true," Malcolm said. "Every word." "Then show me." For the next 2 hours, they laid out everything. The USB recording of Derek planning Nicole's murder, the shell company incorporated 5 years ago, the bribes paid to Mr. Raymond Price, the forged stock transfer documents, the timeline showing Marcus was sedated when he supposedly signed away his shares, the testimony statements from Mrs. Wilson and Frank Miller. D.A. Morgan listened without interrupting, her face growing darker with each revelation. When they finished, she sat back in her chair and let out a long breath. "This is solid," she said finally. "Very solid. You have done excellent work." "Does that mean you will file charges?" Malcolm asked. "It means I am going to present this to a grand jury as soon as possible. If they return an indictment, which I believe they will, we can arrest Derek Hayes and Vanessa Williams on charges of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder fraud, and attempted murder." Zara's heart leaped. "You are going to put them in jail." D.A. Morgan looked at her with something like sympathy. "I am going to try, sweetheart. But I need you to understand something. The grand jury process takes time. At minimum, we are looking at 2 to 3 weeks before an indictment can be issued." 2 to 3 weeks. Malcolm's voice was sharp. "We do not have that kind of time. The custody hearing is in 5 days. If Vanessa wins custody of Zara before the indictment comes down..." "I understand the urgency." D.A. Morgan held up a hand. "Which is why I'm going to make some calls. There are ways to expedite the process when there is an imminent threat to a child's safety, but I need you to be patient and trust the system." "The system?" Malcolm laughed bitterly. "The system let Derek Hayes walk free after embezzling from his own brother's company. The system let Vanessa Williams pretend to be a grieving widow while she was poisoning her husband. Forgive me if I do not have a lot of faith in the system." D.A. Morgan's eyes hardened. "Mr. Carter, I understand your frustration, but I have been fighting for justice in this city for 3 decades. I have put away murderers, rapists, and corrupt politicians. I know how to do my job, so either you trust me to do it or you walk out that door and try to handle this on your own." The room went silent. Malcolm and D.A. Morgan stared at each other for a long moment, neither willing to back down. Finally, Zara spoke up. "Please help us. I do not want to go back to Vanessa. She will hurt me again. I know she will." D.A. Morgan's expression softened. She reached across the table and took Zara's hand. "I am not going to let that happen, sweetheart. I promise." At 11:45 a.m., they left the DA's office with a plan. D.A. Morgan would present the evidence to an emergency session of the grand jury the following day. If all went well, indictments could be issued within 72 hours before the custody hearing. But as they walked out of the building, Malcolm's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and froze. "What is it?" Anderson asked. Malcolm turned the phone so they could see. It was a text from an unknown number. Just 3 words. "Check the news." Thomas turned on the car radio as they drove. The news anchor's voice filled the vehicle. "Breaking news this hour. Millionaire Malcolm Carter, who has been at the center of a custody dispute over 6-year-old Zara Williams, is now facing serious allegations. According to documents obtained by this station, Carter was investigated 10 years ago for financial fraud and tax evasion. While no charges were filed at the time, sources close to the investigation say the case was dropped due to lack of evidence, not innocence." Malcolm's knuckles went white on the armrest. "That is a lie. I was never investigated for anything." "They are making things up," Anderson said grimly, "trying to discredit you before the hearing." The news anchor continued. "Vanessa Williams, the grieving widow of real estate mogul Marcus Williams, released a statement this morning calling for Child Protective Services to immediately remove Zara from Carter's care. Quote, 'This man is a predator who is using my stepdaughter to gain control of my late husband's fortune. I fear for her safety every moment she is with him.'" End quote. Zara felt sick. "Why are they lying about you, Malcolm? You did not do anything wrong." "Because they are desperate," Malcolm said, his jaw tight. "They know we have evidence against them. They are trying to destroy my credibility before I can use it." "What do we do, Ed?" Malcolm looked at Anderson. "We need to respond, now, before this narrative takes hold." Anderson was already on his phone. I am calling a press conference for this afternoon. We will tell our side of the story." "Is that wise?" Malcolm asked. "D.A. Morgan said to trust the system." "The system does not work if public opinion turns against us first. Vanessa is playing the media game, and we need to play it too." The press conference was scheduled for 3:00 p.m. at the Ritz-Carlton. By 2:30 p.m., the hotel lobby was packed with reporters' cameras and curious onlookers. Malcolm stood backstage, adjusting his tie, his face a mask of controlled tension. Zara tugged on his sleeve. "Malcolm, I want to speak too." He looked down at her with surprise. "Sweetheart, you do not have to do that. This is going to be intense. A lot of people shouting questions, cameras flashing. It can be overwhelming even for adults." "I know, but they keep telling lies about you, about me. I want to tell the truth. I want everyone to know what Vanessa really did." Malcolm knelt down so he was at her eye level. "Are you sure once you say something on camera you cannot take it back? The whole world will see it." Zara thought about her mother hiding a USB drive in a teddy bear because she knew she was about to be murdered. She thought about her father slowly poisoned by the people he trusted. She thought about Mrs. Wilson with her broken window and Frank Miller in the hospital. "I am sure," she said firmly, "Mama and Daddy would want me to be brave." Malcolm's eyes glistened. He pulled her into a tight hug. "Your parents would be so proud of you, Zara. I know I am." At 3:07 p.m., Malcolm stepped up to the podium, Zara standing beside him. The room erupted in camera flashes and shouted questions. Malcolm raised his hand for silence. "Thank you all for coming. I know there have been a lot of stories circulating about me and about this little girl. I am here to set the record straight." He spoke for 10 minutes, laying out the facts without revealing the criminal investigation. He talked about his friendship with Marcus, about finding Zara soaked and freezing in the yard, about his decision to protect her from further abuse. Then it was Zara's turn. She stepped up to the microphone, which had been lowered for her height. Her voice trembled at first, but grew stronger as she spoke. "My name is Zara Williams. I am 6 years old. My mommy died 3 years ago, and my daddy died last week." She paused to swallow the lump in her throat. "Vanessa is not my real mom. She married my daddy, but she never loved him. She only loved his money." The reporters leaned forward, captivated. "The day of my daddy's funeral, Vanessa threw a bucket of cold water on me. She called me a curse. She said I brought bad luck to everyone I loved." Zara's voice cracked, but she kept going. "She left me outside shivering and crying, and she laughed about it. Uncle Derek laughed too." A murmur went through the crowd. "Malcolm saved me. He wrapped me in his coat and took me somewhere warm. He gave me food and a bed and told me I did not have to be scared anymore." Tears were streaming down Zara's face now, but she did not stop. "Vanessa is lying about him. She is lying about everything. Please do not let her take me back. Please." The room exploded with questions, but Malcolm pulled Zara away from the podium. "That is enough," he said firmly. "No more questions." They retreated backstage where Anderson was waiting with a stunned expression. "That was incredible," he said. "Zara, you were amazing." "Did it work?" Zara asked, wiping her eyes. "Will people believe me now?" "Check your phone," Anderson told Malcolm. Malcolm pulled out his phone and scrolled through the notifications. Social media was already blowing up. #Justice for Zara was trending. Video clips of her speech were being shared thousands of times. The narrative was shifting. But the moment of triumph was short-lived. At 4:23 p.m., Malcolm's phone rang. It was D.A. Morgan. "Mr. Carter, we have a problem. Someone leaked information about the grand jury proceedings. Derek Hayes knows we are coming for him." Malcolm's blood ran cold. "How is that possible?" "I do not know, but it gets worse. Derek and Vanessa have disappeared. They cleared out of their hotel 2 hours ago. No one knows where they are. They are running. Or planning something. Either way, we need to find them before they can do any more damage." D.A. Morgan paused. "And Mr. Carter, keep that little girl close. If Derek knows we have evidence linking him to murder, he has nothing left to lose. That makes him very dangerous." The call ended and Malcolm stood frozen, the weight of D.A. Morgan's words settling over him like a shroud. "What is it?" Zara asked, seeing his expression. "What is wrong?" Malcolm forced himself to stay calm. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just some news about the case." But Anderson had heard enough. He pulled Malcolm aside and spoke in a low voice. "If Derek is on the run, he might try to leave the country. We need to alert the authorities, get his name on the no-fly list. D.A. Morgan is already handling that, but what if he does not run? What if he decides to—" Malcolm could not finish the sentence. "Then we keep Zara protected, around the clock, no exceptions." They returned to the hotel suite with a security detail of 4 armed guards. Thomas took up position outside the door, his hand resting on the gun concealed beneath his jacket. At 7:15 p.m., Zara was eating dinner when there was a knock at the door. Thomas answered it, spoke briefly with someone in the hallway, then turned to Malcolm. "Sir, there is a woman here. Says her name is Linda Johnson. She owns a cafe near the Williams house. She says she has information about Derek Hayes." Malcolm frowned. "I do not know anyone by that name." "She says it is urgent. She says Derek came into her cafe this afternoon and she heard him on the phone." Malcolm hesitated, then nodded. "Let her in, but search her first." Thomas patted down the woman and checked her purse before allowing her inside. Linda Johnson was a black woman in her 60s, with kind eyes and work-worn hands. She looked nervous, but determined. "Mr. Carter, thank you for seeing me. I know this seems strange showing up like this, but I did not know who else to tell." "What did you hear?" Malcolm asked. "Derek Hayes came into my cafe around 2 o'clock today. He was on the phone pacing back and forth talking real loud like he did not care who heard. He said..." Linda swallowed hard. "He said he was going to end this tonight and that the brat would not be a problem much longer." Zara went pale. Malcolm grabbed Linda's arm. Those were his exact words. The brat would not be a problem much longer. "Yes, sir, I swear it. I wrote it down right after, just in case." She pulled a napkin from her purse with shaky handwriting on it. "I know what that man did to his brother. Everyone in the neighborhood knows, even if nobody wants to say it out loud. I could not just sit by and let him hurt that little girl." Malcolm turned to Anderson. "Call D.A. Morgan. Tell her we have another witness and that Derek made a direct threat against Zara's life." "On it." Malcolm turned back to Linda. "Thank you for coming forward. This took a lot of courage. That child's mama used to come into my cafe every Saturday morning. Sweetest woman you ever met, and her daddy always left a big tip even when business was slow." Linda's eyes filled with tears. "They were good people. They did not deserve what happened to them, and their baby girl does not deserve to be scared of her own family." At 9:30 p.m., Zara was lying in bed unable to sleep. Every sound made her jump. Every shadow seemed to move. She clutched Coco against her chest, whispering to the teddy bear, "Mama, I am so scared. Derek said he is going to end this tonight. What does that mean? Is he going to hurt me?" There was no answer. There never was. A soft knock came at the door, and Malcolm stepped inside. "Cannot sleep." Zara shook her head. "I keep hearing things." Malcolm sat down on the edge of the bed. "The guards are right outside. Thomas is watching the elevator. No one is getting in here without going through all of them first." "But Derek is smart. He killed Mama and made it look like an accident. He poisoned Daddy and no one noticed. What if he finds a way..." Malcolm took her hand. "Zara, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Derek Hayes is a monster. There is no denying that. But monsters can be defeated. Your mother knew that, which is why she left the USB drive. Your father knew that, which is why he never stopped fighting even when he was sick. And I know that, which is why I am not going to rest until Derek and Vanessa are behind bars." "But what if something happens to you? What if they hurt you like they hurt Frank Miller?" "Then Anderson will keep fighting, and D.A. Morgan, and Mrs. Wilson, and Linda Johnson, and all the other people who have stepped up because they believe in the truth." Malcolm squeezed her hand. "You are not alone in this, Zara. You have an army behind you, an army of ordinary people who are willing to stand up and say that what happened to your family was wrong." Zara felt tears pricking at her eyes again. "I wish Daddy was here. He always knew how to make me feel safe." "I know, sweetheart. I wish he was here too." Malcolm leaned forward and kissed her forehead. "But I promise you, I'm going to do everything in my power to keep you safe. Everything. Do you believe me?" Zara looked into his eyes and saw the same determination she used to see in her father's. "I believe you," she whispered. Malcolm stayed with her until she fell asleep, then quietly left the room. He found Anderson in the living room, staring at his laptop with a grim expression. "What is it now?" Malcolm asked. D.A. Morgan just sent this over. The grand jury has agreed to an emergency session tomorrow morning. If everything goes well, indictments could be issued by noon. "That is good news. Why do you look like someone died?" Anderson turned the laptop around. On the screen was a news article with a photo of a burning building. "Mrs. Wilson's house. Someone set it on fire an hour ago." Malcolm felt the blood drain from his face. "Is she..." "She is alive. She was not home. We had moved her to a safe house yesterday, remember?" Anderson shook his head. "But the message is clear. Derek is burning bridges. Literally. He is destroying evidence, intimidating witnesses, and making it clear that anyone who stands against him will pay. This has to stop, tonight. How? We do not even know where he is. Malcolm's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered it on speaker. Malcolm Carter. Derek's voice was silky smooth, almost pleasant. I have to say that press conference was quite something. The little brat really sold it. All those tears, all that trembling. Oscar-worthy performance. Where are you, Derek? Closer than you think. Derek laughed. I wanted to give you one last chance to do the smart thing. Walk away. Take Zara back to Vanessa. Forget everything you think you know. And if I do not, then I start killing people. For real this time. Not slowly like Marcus. Quick and clean. Derek's voice hardened. Starting with that old woman who just lost her house. Mrs. Wilson, right? She is in a hotel on Peachtree Street. Room 412. I have a man outside her door right now. Malcolm's blood turned to ice. If you hurt her, you will what? Go to the police. They are useless. Go to the DA. She cannot protect anyone. Derek's voice dropped to a whisper. I have been planning this for 5 years, Malcolm. Do you really think I did not account for people like you? People who think they can play hero and save the day. What do you want? I already told you, give Zara back to Vanessa, sign over guardianship, and then walk away and never look back. And if I do that, you will leave everyone alone. Cross my heart. Derek laughed at his own joke. You have until midnight to decide. After that, Mrs. Wilson dies. Then Frank Miller, then that librarian who has been helping you, then that cafe owner who thought she was so brave coming forward. He paused. And then maybe I come for you. The line went dead. Malcolm stood motionless, the phone still pressed to his ear, his mind racing. We have to warn them, Anderson said urgently. Mrs. Wilson, Jasmine, Linda, everyone, we have to get them to safety. There is no time. Malcolm's voice was hollow. He has people in place already. If we start making calls, he will know, and people will die. Then what do we do? Malcolm closed his eyes. For a moment he was 15 years old again, hiding under a table while his stepfather's footsteps thundered above him, helpless, powerless, waiting for the pain to come. But then another memory surfaced. Marcus's voice calm and steady on the night he had opened his door to a bleeding, broken boy. You are safe now. I have got you. Malcolm opened his eyes. We give him what he wants. Anderson stared at him. What? You cannot be serious. I am deadly serious. Derek wants Zara back. Fine. I will sign over guardianship. Malcolm, you cannot... Let me finish. Malcolm held up a hand. I will sign over guardianship at midnight. I will meet Derek wherever he wants, with cameras rolling and witnesses watching. And then the moment the ink is dry, D.A. Morgan swoops in with the indictments and arrests both of them. Anderson's eyes widened as he understood. You want to set a trap. Derek thinks he is in control. He thinks he has all the leverage. But he does not know that the grand jury is meeting tomorrow morning. He does not know that indictments could be issued in 12 hours. Malcolm's jaw tightened. We play along with his demands. We buy time. And when he thinks he has won, we take him down. It is risky, if anything goes wrong. Everything is risky, but this way, we have a chance. We put all the bad guys in one place at one time, and we end this once and for all. Anderson was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I will call D.A. Morgan. She will need to move fast. At 11:15 p.m., Malcolm called Derek back. I will do it, he said flatly. I will sign over guardianship. Derek sounded surprised. Well, I did not think you had it in you. The great Malcolm Carter backing down. I am not backing down. I am protecting the people I care about. There is a difference. Whatever helps you sleep at night. Derek's voice turned businesslike. Meet me at the Williams house at midnight. Bring Zara and the guardianship papers. Vanessa will be there to take custody. And you will call off your people. Everyone stays safe? A deal is a deal, Malcolm. I am a man of my word. Malcolm wanted to laugh at the irony, but he kept his voice steady. Midnight, Williams house. I will be there. He hung up and turned to Anderson. Is everything in place? D.A. Morgan is moving the grand jury session up to 10 p.m. tonight. Emergency protocol. If they can get the indictment signed in the next 45 minutes, she will have arrest warrants ready by midnight. And if they cannot... Anderson did not answer. He did not have to. Malcolm walked to Zara's room and found her sitting up in bed, wide awake. She had heard everything through the thin walls. You are giving me back to Vanessa. Her voice was barely a whisper. Malcolm sat down beside her and took her hands. No, sweetheart, I am not. But I need you to trust me. Okay, I have a plan. What kind of plan? A plan to make sure Derek and Vanessa can never hurt you or anyone else ever again, but it means you have to be very brave for a little while longer. Can you do that? Zara's lip trembled, but she nodded. I can be brave, like Mama and Daddy. That is my girl. Malcolm pulled her into a hug. Whatever happens tonight, remember this, I love you. Your parents loved you. And no matter what Derek and Vanessa say or do that love is stronger than their hate, it will always be stronger. At 11:47 p.m., Malcolm's phone buzzed with a text from D.A. Morgan. Indictment signed. Warrants issued. Arrests at midnight. Do not let them escape. Malcolm showed the message to Anderson, and for the first time in days, they both allowed themselves to smile. Let us end this, Malcolm said. They left the hotel at 11:52 p.m., Zara clutching Coco and Malcolm clutching the folder containing the fake guardianship papers. The real papers were still in Anderson's briefcase, untouched. The drive to the Williams house took 8 minutes. As they pulled up at exactly midnight, Malcolm saw Derek and Vanessa waiting on the front porch. Derek was smoking a cigarette, looking smug. Vanessa was dressed in black, her expression unreadable. Malcolm got out of the car and walked toward them, Zara's hand gripping his tightly. Well, well, Derek said, dropping his cigarette and grinding it out with his heel. The conquering hero arrives, with his tail between his legs. I did what you asked. Now call off your people. All in good time. Derek gestured toward Vanessa. First the papers. Malcolm held up the folder. Everything is in here, signed and notarized. Vanessa stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with triumph. Give me the girl. Zara pressed closer to Malcolm. No, I do not want to go with her. Sweetheart, Malcolm said softly, remember what I told you. Be brave. He gently pried Zara's hand from his and nudged her toward Vanessa. Zara walked slowly, her legs shaking, her teddy bear clutched against her chest. Vanessa grabbed her arm the moment she was within reach. Finally, back where you belong. Now release your people, Malcolm said. Our deal is done. Derek smiled and pulled out his phone. Not quite yet. You see, Malcolm, I have been thinking. You know too much. Even if I let everyone go, you are still a loose end. A very dangerous loose end. Malcolm felt his heart rate spike. That was not part of the deal. Deals change. Derek pointed a finger at him like a gun. Here is what is going to happen. You are going to get in your car, drive to the nearest bridge, and jump. Or I make a call and everyone you care about dies tonight. Before Malcolm could respond, sirens split the night. Blue and red lights appeared at both ends of the street, boxing them in. Unmarked cars screeched to a halt and armed officers poured out with weapons drawn. Derek Hayes, Vanessa Williams. You are under arrest for the murder of Nicole Williams, the murder of Marcus Williams, and multiple counts of conspiracy, fraud, and witness intimidation. Derek's face went white. What the hell? D.A. Morgan stepped forward holding up a badge. Did you really think you could outsmart the entire justice system, Mr. Hayes? We have been watching you all night. We heard every word of your phone calls, every threat, every confession. Derek spun toward Malcolm, his eyes wild with rage. You set me up. No. Malcolm's voice was cold. You set yourself up. The moment you killed my best friend, you sealed your own fate. Derek lunged at Malcolm, but two officers tackled him to the ground before he could take 2 steps. Vanessa tried to run, dragging Zara with her, but more officers blocked her path. Let go of the child, an officer shouted. Let go now. Vanessa's grip tightened on Zara's arm, her nails digging into the skin. She is mine. I have custody. Your custody was terminated an hour ago by emergency court order, D.A. Morgan said calmly, on the grounds that you are an immediate danger to the child's safety. You have no rights here, Mrs. Williams. Not anymore. For a long moment, Vanessa stood frozen, her face contorted with rage and disbelief. Then slowly, her grip loosened and Zara pulled free. Zara ran straight into Malcolm's arms, sobbing with relief. It is over, sweetheart, Malcolm whispered, holding her tight. It is finally over. The officers handcuffed Derek and Vanessa and led them to separate police cars. Derek was screaming obscenities, threatening everyone in sight. Vanessa was silent, her face a mask of cold fury. As the police car doors slammed shut, D.A. Morgan walked over to Malcolm and Zara. You did good tonight, she said, both of you. Will they go to prison? Zara asked. For real. For a very long time. D.A. Morgan knelt down to Zara's level. They cannot hurt you anymore, I promise. Zara nodded slowly, her tears soaking into Malcolm's shirt. The night was quiet now, except for the crackle of police radios and the distant wail of more sirens approaching. Malcolm looked up at the Williams house at the place where so much pain had unfolded and made a silent vow. He would rebuild this house. He would fill it with love and laughter and light. And he would make sure that Marcus and Nicole's daughter never felt alone again. Zara looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes. Malcolm. Yes, sweetheart. Can we go home now? Malcolm smiled, the first real smile he had allowed himself in days. Yes, Zara. Let us go home. The drive back to Malcolm's apartment felt different. The weight that had been pressing on Zara's chest for days had lifted, replaced by something fragile and unfamiliar. Hope. At 12:47 a.m. they pulled into the underground parking garage. Thomas opened the door for them, and for the first time since Zara had met him, the big man was smiling. It is done, sir. It is done. Malcolm lifted Zara out of the car. They are going to prison, Thomas. Both of them. Good riddance. Thomas's voice was gruff, but his eyes were soft as he looked at Zara. You are one brave little girl. Your daddy would be proud. Zara managed a small smile. Thank you. They took the elevator up to the penthouse, and the moment the doors opened, Zara saw something that made her gasp. Mrs. Wilson was sitting on Malcolm's couch, a bandage wrapped around her arm. Frank Miller was beside her, his face bruised and swollen, but his eyes bright. Jasmine was there too, along with Linda Johnson from the cafe. Anderson was pouring coffee for everyone. Surprise? Malcolm said softly. I thought you might want to see your army? Zara ran across the room and threw herself at Mrs. Wilson first, hugging the old woman so hard that Mrs. Wilson laughed and winced at the same time. Easy, child. These old bones are not what they used to be. I was so scared for you. Zara's voice was muffled against Mrs. Wilson's shoulder. Derek burned your house. A house is just walls and a roof. Mrs. Wilson stroked Zara's hair gently. What matters is that you are safe. That is all I prayed for. Zara moved to Frank Miller next. The homeless veteran looked uncomfortable with the attention, but he accepted her hug with a gentle pat on her back. You got beat up because of me, Zara whispered. I am so sorry. Worth it. Frank's voice was rough. Every bruise, every broken rib. Worth it to see those monsters in handcuffs. You are a hero. Frank shook his head. Nah, heroes wear capes and fly around saving people. I am just an old soldier who did what needed to be done. Jasmine pulled Zara into a warm embrace. Omididis next. You were amazing at that press conference, honey. The whole country is talking about you. They are. Look. Jasmine pulled out her phone and showed Zara the screen. The hashtag Justice for Zara was still trending now, with millions of posts. People were sharing her speech, calling her brave, demanding justice for her parents. I did not know so many people cared, Zara said softly. People always care about the truth, Linda Johnson said, handing Zara a cup of hot cocoa. Sometimes they just need someone brave enough to tell it. At 1:30 a.m., the group finally dispersed. Mrs. Wilson and Frank were taken to a safe house where they could recover. Jasmine went back to her apartment now under police protection. Linda returned to her cafe with a new security system being installed in the morning. Anderson stayed behind, spreading papers across Malcolm's dining table. We need to talk about next steps, Onico, he said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. The arrests are just the beginning. There is still the trial to prepare for. Malcolm nodded, pouring himself a drink. How long until it goes to court? Given the complexity of the case and the multiple charges, we are looking at 3 to 4 months before trial. Maybe longer. And what happens to Zara in the meantime? That is what I wanted to discuss. Anderson pulled out a folder. The emergency custody order is temporary. It expires in 30 days. We need to file for permanent guardianship. Zara, who had been quietly sipping her cocoa, looked up. What does that mean, huh? Malcolm sat down beside her. It means we need to make our arrangement official, legally. You mean you would be my real guardian, like forever? If you want me to be. Malcolm's voice was careful. This is your decision, Zara. If there is someone else you would rather live with, a relative or family friend, we can explore those options. I do not want you to feel like you are stuck with me just because I happen to be there. Zara set down her cocoa and looked at Malcolm with an intensity that seemed far too old for her 6 years. Malcolm, you saved my life. You believed me when no one else did. You fought for me when everyone said to give up. Her voice trembled slightly. I do not want to live with anyone else. I want to live with you. Malcolm felt something crack open in his chest. For a moment he could not speak. Then that is what we will do, he finally managed. I will file the papers tomorrow. At 2:15 a.m., Zara was finally asleep, exhausted from the emotional roller coaster of the past several hours. Malcolm sat in the living room with Anderson going over the details of the upcoming legal battles. There is something else you should know, Anderson said, his tone shifting to something more serious. I got a call from D.A. Morgan just before I came over. Derek is talking. Malcolm's eyebrows rose. Talking. He wants to cut a deal. He is offering to testify against Vanessa in exchange for a reduced sentence. You have got to be kidding me. I wish I was. Apparently he is claiming that the entire thing was Vanessa's idea, that she masterminded the plan to kill Marcus and manipulated him into going along with it. Malcolm laughed bitterly. 5 years ago he incorporated a shell company to fund his brother's murder. That was not manipulation. That was premeditation. I agree. And D.A. Morgan is not inclined to accept any deal, but the fact that Derek is trying to flip means his lawyer knows the case against him is airtight. He is desperate. Good. Let him rot in prison desperate. Anderson hesitated. There is one more thing. Derek claims to have information about other crimes. Crimes that have not been discovered yet. What kind of crimes? He would not say specifically, but he implied that Marcus was not the first person he killed. The words hung in the air like a poisonous cloud. He killed other people. Malcolm's voice was barely a whisper. That is what he claims. D.A. Morgan thinks he might be bluffing, trying to make himself seem valuable enough to warrant a deal, but she is investigating. Malcolm ran his hands over his face. This just keeps getting worse. It gets better eventually. Anderson placed a hand on Malcolm's shoulder. Derek and Vanessa are in custody. Zara is safe. The truth is coming out. Hold on to that. At 7:30 a.m., Malcolm woke to the smell of coffee brewing. He stumbled out of his bedroom to find Zara in the kitchen standing on a step stool and carefully pouring cereal into a bowl. Good morning, she said brightly. I made breakfast. Tanti. Malcolm looked at the scene before him and felt a warmth spread through his chest. You did not have to do that, sweetheart. I wanted to. Zara carried the bowl to the table with exaggerated care. Mrs. Wilson said that when someone takes care of you, you should find ways to take care of them back. Malcolm sat down and accepted the bowl of cereal. Mrs. Wilson is a wise woman. She told me about her husband. He died in a war a long time ago. She never got married again because she said no one could compare. Zara climbed into the chair across from him. Malcolm, why did you never get married? The question caught Malcolm off guard. I was always too busy with work, I guess, building the company, making money. But you have lots of money now. You could get married if you wanted. Malcolm stirred his cereal thoughtfully. I suppose I could, but I never met the right person, never felt ready to share my life with someone. What about now? Do you feel ready now? Malcolm looked at Zara, at her earnest eyes and hopeful expression, and understood what she was really asking. Yes, he said softly. I think I am ready now. At 9:00 a.m., Malcolm's phone rang. It was D.A. Morgan. Mr. Carter, I need you and Zara to come down to the courthouse. There is a hearing at 11 that you both need to attend. What kind of hearing? Vanessa is contesting the emergency custody order. She has a new lawyer, a very expensive one, and he is arguing that she was denied due process. The judge wants to hear from Zara directly. Malcolm's blood pressure spiked. She cannot possibly think she can win. We have evidence of abuse threats murder. The evidence is for the criminal trial. This is a family court matter. Different rules, different standards. D.A. Morgan's voice was calm but firm. I know it seems unfair, but this is how the system works. The good news is that Judge Patterson is presiding, and she has a reputation for prioritizing children's welfare over procedural technicalities. What does Zara need to do? Just tell the truth. Answer the judge's questions honestly. That is all she has to do. Malcolm hung up and turned to Zara, who had been listening with wide eyes. We have to go to court, he said gently. Vanessa is trying to get custody of you back. Zara's face went pale. But she is in jail. She is still fighting. But we are going to fight back. Okay. Zara nodded slowly, her fingers tightening around Coco. Okay. At 10:45 a.m., they arrived at the Fulton County Courthouse. The building was swarming with reporters who had caught wind of the hearing, and camera flashes exploded as Malcolm led Zara through the crowd. Mr. Carter, is it true that Vanessa Williams is trying to regain custody? Zara, how do you feel about seeing your stepmother again? Is there any truth to the allegations that you kidnapped this child? Malcolm said nothing. His arm wrapped protectively around Zara's shoulders as they pushed through to the entrance. Inside, Anderson was waiting by the courtroom doors. His expression was grim. "Her lawyer is good," he said quietly. "Marcus Whitfield. He is known for finding loopholes and exploiting technicalities. He got a drug dealer acquitted last year on a chain of custody issue even though everyone knew the guy was guilty. Can he really get Vanessa custody back? He can try, but we have something he does not." Anderson looked down at Zara. "We have the truth." The courtroom was smaller than Zara had expected. There was a judge's bench, at the front 2 tables for the opposing parties, and a gallery of seats behind a wooden railing. Reporters filled every available space. Judge Patterson entered at exactly 1100 a.m. She was a black woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair and sharp eyes behind elegant glasses. She took her seat and surveyed the room with an expression that brooked no nonsense. "This hearing will come to order. We are here to address the matter of emergency custody for the minor child, Zara Williams." She looked at the 2 tables. "Mr. Whitfield, I understand your client is contesting the custody order. Present your arguments." Marcus Whitfield stood. He was a white man in his 50s with frickettes, with perfectly styled hair, and a suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. "Your Honor, my client Vanessa Williams was stripped of her parental rights without so much as a hearing. She was given no opportunity to defend herself, no chance to present her side of the story. This is a clear violation of due process. Your client is charged with multiple counts of murder and conspiracy," Judge Patterson said flatly. "The emergency order was issued to protect the child from immediate harm. Alleged murder, Your Honor. My client has not been convicted of anything. In this country, we are innocent until proven guilty." Whitfield spread his hands. "Mrs. Williams loved her stepdaughter. She cared for her for 2 years. Whatever disagreements they may have had, they do not rise to the level of abuse." "Disagreements." Malcolm could not help himself. "She threw a bucket of ice water on a 6-year-old child in 40-degree weather." Judge Patterson held up a hand. "Mr. Carter, you will have your chance to speak. For now, please remain silent." Malcolm clenched his jaw and forced himself to sit back. Whitfield continued. "Your Honor, the evidence against my client is circumstantial at best. The so-called recording that supposedly proves conspiracy is of questionable authenticity. The witnesses who claim to have seen abuse are either homeless individuals with no credibility or neighbors with personal grudges." "That is a lie." Zara jumped to her feet, her voice ringing through the courtroom. "Mrs. Wilson is not lying. Frank is not lying. They saw what Vanessa did to me." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Judge Patterson banged her gavel. "Order, young lady. I understand this is difficult, but you must remain calm." Zara was shaking, tears streaming down her face. "She hurt me. She called me a curse. She said everyone who loves me dies because of me. Why does no one believe me?" The judge's expression softened. "Please sit down, child. I promise you will have a chance to speak." Malcolm gently pulled Zara back into her seat, wrapping his arm around her. "It is okay," he whispered. "I am here. Just breathe." Whitfield cleared his throat. "As the court can see, the child is clearly traumatized, but trauma does not equal abuse. Mrs. Williams believes that Mr. Carter has been manipulating Zara, filling her head with lies, to turn her against her stepmother." "And what does Mrs. Williams have to say for herself?" Judge Patterson asked. Whitfield nodded, and Vanessa was brought in by 2 guards. She was wearing an orange jumpsuit, her hands cuffed in front of her, but she had managed to style her hair and apply makeup. She looked every inch the wronged woman. "Your Honor," Vanessa said, her voice trembling perfectly, "I love Zara. I have loved her since the day I married her father. I know I am not perfect. I know I made mistakes, but I never meant to hurt her." "You threw water on her and left her outside to freeze," Judge Patterson said. "It was a moment of grief and confusion. I had just lost my husband. I was not thinking clearly." Vanessa dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. "If I could take it back, I would. I have apologized to Zara 1,000 times in my heart." "You never apologized to me," Zara said quietly. "Not once. You said I was a curse. You said you wanted me to die." Vanessa's mask slipped for just a fraction of a second, revealing something cold and hard beneath. Then it was back, the grieving widow, the misunderstood stepmother. "I never said that, sweetheart. You must have misheard." "I did not mishear." Zara's voice rose. "Malcolm was there. He saw everything." Judge Patterson turned to Malcolm. "Mr. Carter, what exactly did you witness?" Malcolm stood, his voice steady despite the rage burning in his chest. "Your Honor, I arrived at the Williams house approximately 30 minutes after Marcus Williams's funeral. I found Zara in the front yard, soaked to the skin, shivering so violently I was afraid she was going into hypothermia. Her teddy bear, the last gift from her late mother, was lying in a puddle where Derek Hayes had deliberately stepped on it. Did you witness Mrs. Williams throw water on the child? No. But I have video evidence from before I entered the property. My dash cam was recording as I pulled up. It captured Vanessa Williams throwing a bucket of water on Zara, while Derek Hayes watched and laughed. The courtroom erupted again. Whitfield shot to his feet. This evidence was not disclosed. We have had no opportunity to examine it. The evidence was submitted to D.A. Morgan last night and is part of the criminal case file, Anderson interjected. We can provide copies to opposing counsel immediately. Judge Patterson held up her hand. I want to see this video, now. Malcolm handed his phone to the bailiff, who connected it to the courtroom's display system. A moment later, the footage appeared on a large screen. The video showed Vanessa dragging Zara into the yard. It showed her filling the bucket with water. It showed her throwing the water directly at Zara's face while the child screamed and begged for mercy. It showed Derek laughing and stepping on the teddy bear. When the video ended, the courtroom was completely silent. Judge Patterson's face was a mask of controlled fury. She turned to Vanessa, who had gone pale. Mrs. Williams, do you still claim you never intended to hurt this child? Vanessa opened her mouth, but no words came out. Whitfield tried to salvage the situation. Your Honor, my client was clearly not in her right mind. The grief of losing her husband. Mr. Whitfield. Judge Patterson's voice was ice. I have seen enough. This court finds no merit in the petition to overturn the emergency custody order. The order stands. Furthermore, based on the evidence presented today, I am recommending to the criminal court that additional charges of child abuse be considered. But, Your Honor, we are done here. Judge Patterson banged her gavel. Mr. Carter, your temporary custody of Zara Williams is extended until further notice. A hearing for permanent guardianship will be scheduled within 30 days. Court is adjourned. Vanessa screamed as the guards led her away. This is not over. You cannot keep her from me. She is mine. Zara pressed closer to Malcolm, hiding her face against his chest. I do not want to see her anymore. Please make her go away. She is gone, sweetheart. Malcolm held her tight. She cannot hurt you now. At 1:30 p.m., they finally left the courthouse. The reporters were still waiting, but Malcolm pushed through them without a word. He just wanted to get Zara somewhere safe, somewhere quiet. They went to a small diner 3 blocks from the courthouse. The kind of place where nobody asked questions and the coffee was always fresh. Malcolm ordered soup and sandwiches while Zara sat in silence, staring at her hands. Are you okay? Malcolm asked gently. I was scared. Zara's voice was small. When Vanessa said those things about me being manipulated, I was scared the judge would believe her. The judge saw the truth. Everyone saw the truth. But what if they had not? What if the video did not work? What if Vanessa's lawyer had convinced them? Zara looked up at him with haunted eyes. I keep thinking about all the other kids who do not have someone like you. Kids whose step-parents hurt them and no one believes it. What happens to them? Malcolm did not have a good answer. Because the truth was that not every story ended with justice. Not every child had a Malcolm Carter to rescue them. We cannot save everyone, he finally said. But we can save you, and maybe if we tell your story loud enough, it will help people pay attention to other kids who need help. At 3:45 p.m., Malcolm's phone rang. It was D.A. Morgan. We have a development. Derek Hayes just gave us a full confession. He confessed to everything. Everything and more. He admitted to planning Nicole Williams' murder for 2 years before executing it. He admitted to poisoning Marcus with the help of Dr. Price. And he gave us the names of 3 other people he killed over the past decade, including a business partner who died in what was ruled a boating accident in 2015. Malcolm felt sick. He is a serial killer. That is what the evidence suggests. He has been eliminating people who got in his way for years, making each death look like an accident. D.A. Morgan's voice was heavy. The FBI is getting involved now. This has become much bigger than a local murder case. What about Vanessa? Derek claims she knew about Marcus's murder, but not the others. We are still investigating. D.A. Morgan paused. There is something else. Derek asked to speak with you. Me, why? He would not say. My guess is he wants to try to manipulate you in some way, make you feel sorry for him, or convince you to speak on his behalf. I am advising you not to go. Malcolm thought about it. What time? Mr. Carter, I really do not think... What time is the meeting? D.A. Morgan sighed. 6 o'clock. Fulton County Jail. At 5:30 p.m., Malcolm left Zara with Anderson at the apartment and drove to the jail. He did not know why he was doing this. Maybe he wanted closure. Maybe he wanted to look Derek in the eye and see the monster without any masks. The jail was cold and sterile. A guard led Malcolm to a small room with a table and 2 chairs separated by a thick glass partition. Derek was already there wearing an orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed in front of him. He looked different than he had at the arrest. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something hollow and broken. "You came," Derek said, his voice flat. "I was not sure you would." "I almost did not." Malcolm sat down but did not touch the phone that would allow them to speak. Instead, he just looked at Derek, waiting. Derek picked up his phone and Malcolm reluctantly did the same. "I suppose you want to know why I did it," Derek said. "Why I killed my own brother. I know why. Jealousy, greed, resentment. That is what everyone thinks, but it is more complicated than that." Derek leaned forward. "Do you know what it is like to grow up in your brother's shadow, to be constantly compared to him and always found lacking? Marcus was the golden child, the smart one, the successful one. Our parents adored him. Everyone adored him. So you killed him because you were jealous." "I killed him because he had everything I deserved." Derek's eyes burned with a feverish intensity. "He got the company that should have been mine. He got the wife, the daughter, the perfect life. While I got nothing. Nothing. You got nothing because you made bad choices. You embezzled from your own family. You betrayed people who trusted you. And Marcus never let me forget it." Derek's voice rose. "Every time I tried to come back, he threw it in my face. You need to earn trust, Derek. You need to prove yourself, Derek. Like I was some kind of child who needed his approval." "So you killed his wife. You poisoned him. You tried to steal his daughter's inheritance." Malcolm shook his head. "And you think that makes you the victim?" "I am not the victim." Derek smiled, and it was a terrible thing to see. "But neither is Marcus. He was not the saint everyone thinks he was. He had secrets, Malcolm. Dark secrets that would destroy his precious reputation if they came out." "What secrets?" Derek's smile widened. "Would not you like to know?" Malcolm stared at him for a long moment. Then he stood up and placed the phone back in its cradle. "Goodbye, Derek." "Wait." Derek pressed his hand against the glass. "I have more to tell you. About Marcus, about Nicole, about things you never knew." But Malcolm was already walking away. He did not look back. At 7:15 p.m., Malcolm returned to the apartment. Zara was sitting on the couch with Anderson watching a cartoon on television. She looked up when he entered. "Where did you go?" "Just had to take care of something." Malcolm sat down beside her. "How are you feeling?" "Better, I think. Mr. Anderson showed me how to play chess. I am not very good yet, but I beat him once." "I let her win," Anderson said with a smile, building confidence. Malcolm laughed, and for a moment everything felt almost normal, almost peaceful. Then his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "He is lying about Marcus. Your friend had blood on his hands too. Ask about Jackson Heights 2012. Malcolm stared at the message, his blood running cold. "What is it?" Anderson asked, noticing his expression. "Nothing." Malcolm pocketed the phone. "Just spam?" But the words echoed in his mind. Jackson Heights 2012. What happened there? And what did Marcus have to do with it? At 8:30 p.m. after Zara was asleep, Malcolm sat alone in his study, typing Jackson Heights 2012 into a search engine. The results were mostly news articles about a fire. A warehouse fire that had killed 4 people, including a woman and her 2 children. The fire had been ruled an accident caused by faulty wiring. Malcolm dug deeper. He found the names of the victims. Maria Santos, 34. Her children Diego, 10, and Sofia, 7. And a man named Thomas Rivera, 45. The warehouse had belonged to a company called Hartwell Properties. Malcolm felt his stomach drop. Hartwell Properties was a subsidiary of Marcus's company, the company that Marcus had built from nothing. He kept searching, pulling up old court records, insurance claims, property documents. The picture that emerged was disturbing. In 2011, Marcus had been trying to acquire a piece of land in Jackson Heights for a development project. The warehouse was on that land occupied by tenants who refused to leave. There were legal battles, protests, accusations of harassment. Then in January 2012, the warehouse burned down. The tenants died. The land became available. Marcus bought it 3 months later. Malcolm sat back, his mind reeling. Was it possible? Could Marcus, his best friend, the man who had saved his life, be responsible for the deaths of 4 innocent people? No, he whispered to himself. Marcus would never do that. This is a coincidence. It has to be. But the doubt had been planted, and doubt once planted has a way of growing. At 9:45 p.m., Malcolm's phone rang. It was a number he did not recognize, but he answered anyway. "Mr. Carter?" The voice was female, older, with a slight Spanish accent. "My name is Elena Santos. Maria was my sister. I know what really happened in Jackson Heights, and I know what your friend Marcus Williams did." Malcolm gripped the phone tighter. "I do not know what you are talking about." "Yes, you do. You have been searching. You have been finding things." Elena's voice was calm, but edged with old pain. "Marcus Williams paid people to set that fire. He murdered my sister and her children to get their land, and then he spent the next decade pretending to be a good man." "You have no proof of that." "I have plenty of proof. Witnesses, documents, things that Marcus thought he had buried forever." Elena paused. "The question is, Mr. Carter, what are you going to do with the truth? Are you going to protect a dead man's reputation, or are you going to give my family the justice we have waited 13 years for?" The line went dead. Malcolm sat in the darkness of his study, the phone still pressed to his ear, trying to reconcile the man he thought he knew with the monster Elena Santos had just described. His best friend, the man who saved his life, the father of the little girl, sleeping in the next room. A murderer? The truth was somewhere out there waiting to be found, and Malcolm knew with a sinking certainty that finding it might destroy everything he thought he knew about Marcus Williams. Everything he had told Zara about her father. Everything. Malcolm did not sleep that night. He sat in his study staring at the computer screen, reading every article he could find about the Jackson Heights fire. The more he read, the more his stomach churned. At 6:15 a.m., he heard footsteps in the hallway. Zara appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Malcolm, why are you awake so early?" He quickly closed the browser window. "Just working on some things. How did you sleep?" "Okay, I guess." Zara walked over and climbed onto his lap. "I had a dream about Daddy. He was smiling and telling me everything was going to be okay." Malcolm felt his heart clench. "That sounds like a nice dream." "It was." Zara looked up at him with innocent eyes. "Daddy was a good man, right? He loved me and Mama more than anything." Malcolm hesitated for just a fraction of a second. "Yes, sweetheart, he loved you very much." But the words tasted like ashes in his mouth. At 9:00 a.m., Malcolm made a decision. He needed to know the truth about Jackson Heights, and there was only one person who might have answers. He called Elena Santos. "I want to meet," he said when she answered. "I want to see your proof." "Come to my apartment, 1847 Maple Street, apartment 3B. Come alone." Malcolm arranged for Anderson to stay with Zara, making up an excuse about a business meeting. He drove across town to a modest apartment building in a working-class neighborhood. Elena Santos opened the door before he could knock. She was in her 60s with gray hair and tired eyes that held decades of grief. "Thank you for coming." She stepped aside to let him in. "I was not sure you would." "I need to know the truth, whatever it is." Elena led him to a small kitchen table covered with documents, photographs, and old newspaper clippings. She sat down heavily and gestured for him to do the same. "My sister Maria was a good woman. She worked 2 jobs to support her children. Diego wanted to be a doctor. Sophia loved to dance." Elena's voice cracked. "They had their whole lives ahead of them." "Tell me what happened." "In 2011, Marcus Williams wanted to buy the land where my sister lived. The warehouse had been converted into apartments. Cheap but decent. 12 families lived there." Elena pulled out a document. "This is the eviction notice Marcus's company sent. They offered a pittance for relocation. Maria and the others refused to leave." Malcolm examined the document. It bore the Hartwell Properties letterhead. When the tenants would not leave, the harassment started. Broken windows, dead rats in the mailboxes, threatening letters. Elena's eyes hardened. Then in January 2012, the fire happened. 4 people died. My sister, her children, and Thomas Rivera, a grandfather who lived on the top floor. The fire was ruled an accident. The fire was arson. Elena slid another document across the table. "This is a statement from a man named Carlos Vega. He was paid $5,000 to set the fire. He confessed to a priest before he died of cancer in 2018. The priest gave me this statement." Malcolm read the handwritten confession. His hands were shaking. Carlos named the man who hired him, a man who worked for Marcus Williams, Raymond Price. Malcolm's head snapped up. Raymond Price, the doctor who poisoned Marcus. The same. Before he became a doctor, Raymond Price was a fixer. He did dirty work for powerful people. Marcus Williams was one of his clients. Elena leaned forward. Do you understand now? The man who killed your friend was the same man your friend used to kill innocent people. There is a terrible poetry in that. Malcolm sat in silence, trying to process what he was hearing. The Marcus he knew, the man who had saved his life. The father who adored his daughter, had ordered the deaths of a woman and her children. I do not believe this, he said finally. Marcus was not capable of murder. Everyone is capable of murder, Mr. Carter, given the right circumstances, the right pressure, the right amount of greed. Elena stood and walked to a small bookshelf. She pulled out a worn photograph and handed it to Malcolm. It showed a young woman with dark hair and a bright smile, her arms around two children who looked just as happy. This was Maria, Diego, Sophia. They were real people. They had dreams and hopes and families who loved them. And Marcus Williams took all of that away because he wanted to build a shopping center on their graves. Malcolm stared at the photograph, and something broke inside him. Not his faith in Marcus. That had been crumbling since the night before. What broke was his certainty about anything, about anyone. What do you want from me? He asked quietly. I want justice. I want the world to know what Marcus Williams really was. Not a saint, not a hero. A murderer who got away with it for 13 years. Elena's voice hardened. And I want you to tell his daughter the truth. Malcolm's head snapped up. No, absolutely not. Zara has been through enough. She has lost both, her parents been abused by her stepmother, had her entire world destroyed. I am not going to tell her that her father was a killer. Then you are going to lie to her for the rest of her life. I am going to protect her. Elena studied him for a long moment. You love that little girl. Yes, I do. Then you should know that secrets have a way of coming out. Sooner or later, someone will tell Zara the truth about her father. Would you rather she hear it from a stranger or from someone who loves her? Malcolm had no answer. At 11:30 a.m., he left Elena's apartment with copies of all her documents. He sat in his car for 20 minutes, staring at nothing, trying to figure out what to do next. His phone rang. It was Anderson. Malcolm, where are you? D.A. Morgan has been trying to reach you. The trial date has been set. When? Next month, March 15th. Both Derek and Vanessa will be tried together. Okay, I am on my way back. But Malcolm did not go back to the apartment right away. Instead, he drove to Westview Cemetery, to the place where Marcus Williams had been buried just 2 weeks ago. He stood in front of the headstone reading the inscription, Marcus Williams, beloved husband and father, rest in peace. Who were you? Malcolm whispered. Were you the man who saved my life, or were you the monster who burned a woman and her children alive? The headstone offered no answers. The dead kept their secrets. At 1:15 p.m., Malcolm finally returned to the apartment. Zara ran to greet him at the door. Malcolm, Mr. Anderson taught me how to play backgammon. I won 3 times. That is wonderful, sweetheart. Malcolm hugged her, holding on a little tighter than usual. Anderson noticed his expression. Everything okay? We need to talk. Later, when Zara is asleep. That evening, after Zara was tucked into bed, Malcolm told Anderson everything. About Elena Santos, about the Jackson Heights fire, about Raymond Price and the deathbed confession. Anderson listened without interrupting. When Malcolm finished, he let out a long breath. This is bad. I know. If this comes out during the trial, it could complicate everything. Derek's lawyers could use it to muddy the waters, make Marcus look like the real villain. Derek is the real villain. He killed Nicole. He poisoned Marcus. But Marcus may have killed 4 people 13 years ago. In the eyes of the jury, that might make Derek's crimes seem like karma. Anderson ran his hands over his face. We need to tell D.A. Morgan. And Zara. That is your decision, but I agree with you. She is too young to handle this. Maybe when she is older, when she has had time to heal. At 8:45 p.m., Malcolm called D.A. Morgan and told her about Elena Santos and the Jackson Heights evidence. There was a long silence on the other end. This is going to be a problem, D.A. Morgan finally said. I need to see those documents, and I need to talk to Elena Santos. She wants justice for her family. She may get it, but not in this trial. The Jackson Heights fire is a separate matter. If there is enough evidence, we can open a new investigation, but it cannot interfere with the case against Derek and Vanessa. And if Derek's lawyers find out about this, then we deal with it. The evidence against Derek is overwhelming. A 13-year-old fire is not going to change the fact that he killed Nicole Williams and poisoned his brother. Malcolm wanted to believe her. He desperately wanted to believe that justice would prevail, that the truth would come out, that everything would somehow make sense. but he had seen too much in the past 2 weeks. He knew that justice was fragile, that truth was complicated, and that the people we love are never quite who we think they are. At 10:30 p.m., Zara woke up screaming. Malcolm rushed to her room and found her sitting up in bed, tears streaming down her face. "I had a bad dream," she sobbed. "I dreamed Daddy was on fire. He was burning and screaming, and I could not help him." Malcolm's blood turned to ice. "It was just a dream, sweetheart. Just a dream." "But it felt so real. Daddy was reaching out to me, asking me to save him, and I could not." Zara clutched Coco against her chest. "Why did I dream that? Why would Daddy be on fire?" Malcolm held her tight, his mind racing. Was it possible that somewhere, somehow, Zara had heard something about Jackson Heights? Or was this just a coincidence, a random nightmare born of trauma and grief? "Sometimes our brains play tricks on us," he said carefully. "Dreams do not always mean anything. They are just our minds trying to process all the scary things that have happened." Zara nodded slowly, but she did not look convinced. "Malcolm, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Was Daddy perfect? Like, was he always good? Did he ever do anything bad?" Malcolm hesitated. "No one is perfect, Zara. Everyone makes mistakes." "But Daddy was mostly good, right? He was mostly a good person." Malcolm thought about the photograph Elena had shown him. Maria, Diego, Sophia, 3 innocent people who had died because Marcus wanted their land. "Your father loved you more than anything in the world," he said finally. "That is what matters. That is what you should remember." It was not a lie, but it was not the whole truth either. The weeks that followed were filled with preparation for the trial. D.A. Morgan built her case, methodically gathering evidence, interviewing witnesses, and rehearsing testimony. On March 15th at 9:00 a.m., the trial of Derek Hayes and Vanessa Williams began in Fulton County Superior Court. The courtroom was packed with reporters, spectators, and family members of the victims. Zara sat in the front row between Malcolm and Anderson. She was wearing a purple dress, her hair neatly braided, Coco tucked safely in her bag. She had insisted on being there. "I want to see them get punished," she had told Malcolm. "I want to watch." Derek and Vanessa were brought in separately, both wearing orange jumpsuits, both looking significantly worse than they had at their arrest. Derek had lost weight. Vanessa's hair had gone gray at the roots. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence. The USB recording of Derek planning Nicole's murder, the financial records showing the bribes to Dr. Price, the medical evidence proving Marcus had been slowly poisoned, the video of Vanessa throwing water on Zara. Witness after witness took the stand. Mrs. Wilson described the abuse she had witnessed. Frank Miller, still recovering from his injuries, testified about the night of the funeral. Jasmine presented her research on the forged documents. Linda Johnson recounted Derek's threatening phone call. And then on the 8th day, Zara was called to testify. She walked to the witness stand with her head held high, even though Malcolm could see her hands trembling. She was sworn in and took her seat looking so small in the big chair. D.A. Morgan approached gently. "Zara, can you tell the court what happened on the day of your father's funeral?" Zara took a deep breath. "After we came home from the cemetery, Vanessa changed. She stopped pretending to be nice. She told me she never loved Daddy, that she only married him for money." "What happened next?" "Derek came. He was Daddy's brother, but he was mean. He said he was going to take Daddy's place. He grabbed my face and hurt me." Zara touched her chin, remembering. "Then Vanessa dragged me outside. She filled a bucket with cold water and threw it on me." "What did she say to you?" "She said I was a curse. She said everyone who loves me dies because of me." Zara's voice cracked. "She said she wanted me to get sick and die so she would not have to deal with me anymore." The courtroom was completely silent. Several jurors were openly crying. "And what happened after that?" D.A. Morgan asked softly. "Malcolm came. He saved me. He wrapped me in his coat and took me away from them." Zara looked at Malcolm, her eyes shining with tears and gratitude. "He promised to take care of me, and he has, every day." Derek's defense attorney tried to cross-examine Zara, suggesting that Malcolm had coached her testimony, that she was exaggerating or misremembering. Zara remained calm. "I am not lying. I remember everything, every word, every moment. I will never forget what they did to me." The attorney backed off. Even he could see that attacking a traumatized child was not going to win any sympathy from the jury. On the final day of the trial, D.A. Morgan delivered her closing argument. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have heard the evidence, you have seen the recordings, you have listened to the witnesses. This is not a complicated case. Derek Hayes and Vanessa Williams conspired to murder Nicole Williams. They slowly poisoned Marcus Williams over the course of 8 months. They abused a 6-year-old child and tried to steal her inheritance. They intimidated and attacked witnesses who dared to speak the truth. She paused, letting the words sink in. Derek Hayes wants you to believe he was manipulated, that Vanessa was the mastermind, but the evidence shows otherwise. Derek incorporated a shell company 5 years before Marcus even met Vanessa. He was planning this murder long before she came into the picture. He is not a victim. He is a predator who has been killing people who got in his way for over a decade. D.A. Morgan turned to look at Derek and Vanessa. These two people destroyed a family. They took a mother from her child. They took a father from his daughter. They left a 6-year-old girl with nothing but a teddy bear and a USB drive full of evidence that her own family wanted her dead. She turned back to the jury. Zara Williams will carry the scars of what these people did to her for the rest of her life. But she is strong, she is brave, and she deserves justice. Nicole Williams deserves justice. Marcus Williams deserves justice. I am asking you to give it to them. At 3:47 p.m. on April 5th, the jury returned with their verdict. On the count of murder in the first degree for the death of Nicole Williams, we find the defendant Derek Hayes guilty. Zara gripped Malcolm's hand so hard that her nails dug into his skin. On the count of murder in the first degree for the death of Marcus Williams, we find the defendant Derek Hayes guilty. We find the defendant Vanessa Williams guilty. On the count of conspiracy to commit murder, we find both defendants guilty. On the count of child abuse, we find the defendant Vanessa Williams guilty. On the count of fraud and asset misappropriation, we find both defendants guilty. The courtroom erupted in cheers and tears. Derek sat frozen, his face ashen. Vanessa collapsed against the defense table, sobbing. Zara turned to Malcolm, her eyes bright with tears. They are going to prison for real. For a very long time. Malcolm pulled her into a hug. It is over, sweetheart. It is finally over. But even as he said the words, Malcolm knew it was not entirely true. There was still the matter of Jackson Heights. Still the truth about Marcus that he had not yet told Zara. The sentencing hearing was held 2 weeks later. Derek received life without parole for the murders of Nicole and Marcus Williams, plus additional years for the other victims he had confessed to killing. Vanessa received 35 years for her role in Marcus's murder and the abuse of Zara. As they were led away in handcuffs, Derek turned and locked eyes with Zara. This is not over, he mouthed silently. You will never escape your father's sins. Zara did not flinch. She stared right back at him until the guards dragged him through the door. What did he say to you, Pike? Malcolm asked, concerned. Nothing important. Zara squared her shoulders. He is just trying to scare me, but I am not scared of him anymore. In the weeks that followed as life slowly began to return to normal. Malcolm filed for permanent guardianship, which was granted without contest. He enrolled Zara in a new school where she made friends and started to smile more often. He took her to therapy twice a week where she worked through her trauma with a kind-faced woman named Dr. Harrison, and Malcolm made another decision. He met with Elena Santos and helped her file a civil lawsuit against Marcus's estate for the wrongful deaths of Maria Diego Sofia and Thomas Rivera. The lawsuit was quiet, kept out of the press, settled for an undisclosed sum that went to the victims' families. It was not perfect justice. It could not bring back the dead, but it was something. One evening in late May, Malcolm sat Zara down for a difficult conversation. Sweetheart, there is something I need to tell you about your father. Zara looked at him with wary eyes. Is it bad? It is complicated. Malcolm took a deep breath. Your father was not perfect. A long time ago, before you were born, he made some mistakes. Serious mistakes that hurt people. What kind of mistakes? He was building his company, and he wanted some land that belonged to other people. When they would not sell, he did something terrible to get them to leave. Malcolm's voice was heavy. People died because of what he did. A woman and her children. Zara was quiet for a long moment. Daddy killed people like Derek. It is not exactly the same. He did not do it himself, but he was responsible. Malcolm took her hands. I am telling you this because I believe you deserve to know the truth, and because I do not want you to spend your whole life thinking your father was perfect only to find out later that he was not. Why are you telling me now? Because the woman whose sister died, she came to me. She wanted justice. I helped her get some money from your father's estate to try to make things a little bit right. Malcolm's eyes were wet. I know this is hard to hear. I know it changes how you see your father, but I also know that you are strong enough to handle the truth. Zara sat in silence for what felt like forever. Then she spoke, her voice small but steady. Daddy did bad things, but he also loved me. Both things can be true, right? Malcolm nodded. Both things can be true. And you did a good thing by helping that woman. You tried to fix what Daddy broke. I tried. Zara climbed onto Malcolm's lap and wrapped her arms around his neck. Thank you for telling me the truth, even though it hurt. Malcolm held her tight, tears streaming down his face. I love you, Zara, no matter what. No matter what your father did or did not do. I love you. I love you too, Dad. It was the first time she had called him that, and in that moment Malcolm knew that despite everything, despite all the pain and loss and terrible revelations, they were going to be okay. 6 months later, on a crisp November afternoon, Malcolm and Zara stood on the porch of a newly renovated building on Maple Street. A sign hung above the door, Harbor Light Center. What is this place? Zara asked, looking up at Malcolm. This is our gift to the community, a place where children who have been through hard times can come to feel safe, where they can get help and food and books and someone to listen to them. Malcolm smiled. I named it after your mother's favorite book, the one she used to read to you before bed. The one about the lighthouse that guided ships home. That is the one. The doors opened and people began streaming out. Mrs. Wilson, her arm still scarred, but her smile bright. Frank Miller, clean-shaven now, and wearing a Harbor Light Center volunteer shirt. Jasmine holding a stack of children's books. Linda Johnson carrying a tray of cookies from her cafe. Anderson checking items off a list on his clipboard. And behind them, dozens of neighborhood children running and laughing and exploring their new sanctuary. Elena Santos was there too, standing quietly at the edge of the crowd. She and Malcolm had formed an unlikely friendship over the past months. She had helped him understand that seeking justice and offering forgiveness were not mutually exclusive, that honoring the dead meant not just remembering them, but learning from their mistakes. You built something good here, Elena said, walking over to stand beside him. Maria would have loved this, a place where children could be safe. I could not bring them back, Malcolm said quietly, but I could try to make sure other children did not suffer the same fate. Elena nodded and squeezed his arm. That is enough. That is more than enough. Zara ran up her cheeks, flushed with excitement. Malcolm, I mean Dad, come see. There is a reading room with 100 books and an art station with every color of paint and a room just for playing. Malcolm laughed and let her drag him inside. The center was everything he had hoped it would be. Bright and warm and filled with the sound of children being children. In the main hall, a large photograph hung on the wall. It showed Marcus and Nicole Williams on their wedding day, young and happy and full of hope. Beside it hung another photograph, one that Malcolm had added just this morning. It showed Maria Santos and her children Diego and Sofia smiling at the camera. A small plaque beneath the photographs read, "In memory of all those we have lost. May their light guide us home." Zara noticed the photographs and went quiet. She stood in front of them for a long moment, her expression thoughtful. Dad, who are those other people, the woman and the kids? Malcolm knelt beside her. They are people your father hurt a long time ago. I put their picture here so we would always remember them, so we would always remember that our actions have consequences and that we have a responsibility to try to make things right when we do wrong. Zara nodded slowly. So this place is not just for me. It is for them too. It is for everyone. Everyone who needs a safe harbor in the storm. Zara reached out and touched the glass covering Maria's photograph. I am sorry for what my daddy did to you, she whispered. I hope you are happy in heaven with your kids. I hope Daddy had a chance to say sorry, too. Malcolm felt his heart break and heal at the same time. This child, this remarkable child, had more wisdom and grace than most adults he had ever known. That evening, after the celebration had wound down and the last guests had gone home, Malcolm and Zara sat on the porch of the Harbor Light Center, watching the sunset over Atlanta. Dad, Zara said, leaning against his shoulder. Yes, sweetheart. Do you think Mama and Daddy can see us right now? Do you think they know what we built? Malcolm put his arm around her. I think they can, and I think they are proud. Even though we told everyone about the bad things Daddy did, especially because of that. The truth is not always easy, Zara, but it is always better than lies. Your parents would want us to live honestly, to face the hard things, to keep trying to be better even when we fall short. Zara was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Dad, I want to be a lawyer when I grow up, like Mr. Anderson. I want to help kids like me who do not have anyone to fight for them. Malcolm smiled. I think that is a wonderful dream. And I want to make sure that people who do bad things get punished, but also that people who made mistakes can have a chance to make things right. like Elena's family, like the kids who come to Harbor Light. That sounds like a very balanced approach to justice. Zara grinned. I learned from the best. She reached into her bag and pulled out Coco the teddy bear that had started this whole journey. The bear was worn and faded now, patched in several places where the stitching had come loose, but Zara still carried it everywhere. You know what I figured out? She said, holding the bear up to look at it. What? Mama put that USB drive in Coco because she knew I would never let go of it. She knew that even if everything else was taken away from me, I would hold on to this bear, because it was from her, because it meant love. Zara hugged the bear to her chest. Mama saved me even though she was not here anymore. She found a way to protect me from beyond the grave. Malcolm felt tears pricking at his eyes. Your mother was an incredible woman. So was Maria Santos, and her kids. Zara looked up at him with those wise old eyes. I do not want anyone to be forgotten, Dad. Not the good people or the bad people or the people in between. I want to remember everyone and learn from everyone. That is a very mature perspective. I had to grow up fast. Zara shrugged. But that is okay. I have you now, and Mrs. Wilson, and Frank, and Jasmine, and Linda, and Mr. Anderson. I have a whole family, even if we are not related by blood. Family is not about blood. It is about who shows up, who stays, who loves you even when it is hard. That is what Daddy used to say. Zara smiled sadly. I guess he got some things right. They sat in silence as the last rays of sunlight faded into dusk. The streetlights flickered on, casting pools of gold across the sidewalk. Inside the Harbor Light Center, the night staff was preparing for the evening program where neighborhood kids could come for dinner and homework help. Malcolm thought about everything that had happened since that terrible day when he had found Zara shivering in the yard. The arrests, the trial, the revelations about Marcus, the pain, the healing, the new beginning. It had not been easy. It would never be easy. The scars they both carried would take years to fully heal if they ever did. But they had each other. They had their found family. They had purpose, and they had hope. Dad, Zara said, interrupting his thoughts. Yes? Thank you for saving me. Not just from Vanessa and Derek, but from being alone, from thinking I was cursed, from believing that no one would ever love me. Malcolm pulled her into a tight hug. Thank you for letting me be your father, for trusting me when you had every reason not to trust anyone, for being brave enough to tell the truth even when it was terrifying. We saved each other, Zara said into his chest. That is what family does. Malcolm smiled, his heart full to bursting. That is exactly what family does. A year ago, he had been a successful businessman with a wounded past and a future that stretched out lonely and cold before him. Now he had a daughter, a purpose, and a community that had come together to fight for justice and build something beautiful from the ashes of tragedy. Zara pulled back and looked up at him with a smile that could light up the darkest night. Ready to go home, Dad? Malcolm stood and took her hand. Ready. So, they walked down the steps of the Harbor Light Center past the sign that proclaimed hope to everyone who entered, past the photographs of the lost and the loved, into a future that was uncertain but no longer frightening, because they had learned the most important lesson of all, that evil exists but so does goodness, that people can fail but they can also rise, that justice may be delayed, but it will never be denied, and that love, true love, the kind that shows up and stays and fights, is stronger than any darkness the world can throw at it. The wicked had been punished. The innocent had been protected. The truth had been told. And a little girl who had once been thrown out into the cold had found her way home. That is the end of Zara's story, but it is also a beginning of healing, a beginning of hope, a beginning of the life she was always meant to live. And somewhere in whatever lies beyond this world, Nicole and Marcus Williams watched over their daughter, grateful that when she needed it most, someone had answered their prayers. Someone had run in from the darkness. Someone had wrapped a coat around her shoulders. Someone had said the words she needed to hear. You are safe now, and you will never be alone again.